Chapter 6:28. Seeing that his wife was so smart and knew what he was thinking and planning, Linley smiled and said, "Inger knows me best." Ha ha! As soon as Linley said this, a burst of laughter that sounded like the chirping of an oriole filled the entire restaurant. Everyone present was stunned by this laughter. Of course, although her appearance wasn't as perfect as the evil phoenix's, it wasn't easy to find someone like her in the god realm. Looking at his wife's smile, Linley said, "You're right. I heard that there are many good things in this pocket dimension. Who knows, they might be able to help me increase my cultivation. This is a rare opportunity. I don't want to give it up." "Yes, that's right. There's something strange here. Maybe it's just as you said. There's a secret realm here. If that's the case, then it's not bad." At this moment, Evil Phoenix, who had been drinking nearby, hurriedly spoke up upon hearing Linley's words. Hearing this, Linley nodded. "Yes, so let's wait here for a few days. However, we can't stay in this restaurant anymore. Let's go somewhere else." "Yes." No one objected to Lin Rei's words. They all nodded in agreement. Phew, at this moment, Xian Guang's voice suddenly rang out. "Master!" As soon as he said that, everyone looked at him. Even his good friend Long Tian did the same. However, the others all had smiles on their faces. As for that god emperor named Dragon Sky, upon hearing his friend Xian Guang refer to Linley as master, he was momentarily stunned. "Yes, since you've recognized me as your master, then I'll do what I promised you. After I'm done refining the pills, I'll treat your spiritual roots and let them recover." "Yes, master." Lin Rei smiled as he looked at Xian Guang. Although he was only a monarch god, he'd be able to regain his position after he treated Xian Guang's injuries. At that time, he'd have 4 supreme gods protecting him. He'd be able to do whatever he wanted in the realm of the god. When he thought of this, Linley couldn't stop smiling. However, the difficult problem at hand was how to deal with Long Tian, as well as his identity. Although Long Tian didn't know, Linley had already revealed most of his trump cards. If Long Tian became his enemy or Lin Rei became vigilant, it would be a pity if he killed Long Tian. After all, Long Tian was a monarch god. However, if he didn't kill Long Tian wouldn't be willing to become his subordinate. Lin Rei was in a dilemma. At this moment, Xian Guang, who recognized Lin Rei as his master, realized what was going on when he saw Lin Rei's troubled expression. "Long Tian, I think you should hurry up and submit. Do you think you can escape when 3 sage-level experts are walking beside you? Moreover, Master has already revealed his trump card. Do you think he'll let you leave?" Long Tian was stunned when he heard Xian Guang's words. He kept thinking about Xian Guang's words. "Yes. I already know his strength and trump cards. If I leave now, I'll be courting death. But if I don't leave and eat the pills, then..." Long Tian was in a dilemma. Thinking of this, Long Tian couldn't help but feel very conflicted. He didn't know if he would recognize a master or be killed. However, Lin Rei didn't know about the conversation between Xian Guang and Long Tian. If he knew about it, he would have laughed himself to death. After all, he hadn't thought about this. He was only thinking about whether to release Long Tian or not. Alas, forget it. I'll release him. Although you know my trump cards, Xiefeng's cultivation hasn't been exposed. At least, I don't have to be afraid of her. Lin Rei finally figured it out. A smile reappeared on his face. He then said to Long Tian, "Long Tian, however, Lin Rei didn't expect that Long Tian would interrupt him and say, 'I'm willing to recognize you as my master.'" Long Tian's words immediately stunned Linley. These words caught him off guard, or rather, he was a little surprised. He hadn't expected Long Tian to be like this. Of course, how could Linley let him go when he was so proactive? He smiled and said, "All right, since that's the case, eat this." As he spoke, Linley took out the pill that Xian Guang had just eaten and handed it to Long Tian. "Okay." Although Long Tian's divine sense showed that he was still hesitant, he still took the pill and swallowed it. Lin Rei looked at Long Tian and asked, Long Tian, I'm curious. Why did you recognize me as your master? Long Tian, who had swallowed the pill, looked up at Linley and explained, I've seen your message. If I go out like this, you won't be at ease. I've been cultivating for so many years, and I don't want to ruin my cultivation, so, oh. Ha ha ha. Hearing this reason, Linley couldn't help but laugh. Although he had thought about it before, he had originally planned to let him go. Who knew? However, this outcome was still good. After all, he now had an Emperor God expert by his side. When Long Tian and Xian Guang saw Linley laugh upon hearing these words, they were puzzled. However, they didn't ask any questions. Long Tian, who had swallowed the pill, had already begun to take effect. Master. Looking at Long Tian, who had already become his subordinate, Linley nodded and said to the two of them, In the future, follow by this sovereign's side. Also, don't call me master in the future. Just call me young master like Ghostly. Hearing Linley's words, Long Tian and Xian Guang exchanged a glance, then nodded in agreement. Yes, we will obey your orders, young master. Okay, seeing the two of them like this, Linley laughed. He didn't expect to meet a former supreme god and an emperor god in just a short while. It had to be said that his luck was unparalleled. Most likely, even the ruler of luck wouldn't have such luck. Hee, congratulations, congratulations. It hasn't been long, and you already have 2 subordinates. Moreover, their cultivation is not bad. Sometimes I really wonder if you are lucky. Why do such good things appear by your side every time? At this moment, Xie Feng said to Lin Rei with a sour expression. Her eyes were full of envy and laughter. Haha, yes. Brother Lei's luck has always been good. Just like this time, you randomly came to a city and encountered the opening of a secret realm. Your luck is really unparalleled. Seeing the two flattering him, Lin Rei's face flushed red. He said a little embarrassedly, All right, let's not talk about me. Luck is something that can't be seen or touched. No one can say for sure. Speaking up to this point, Linley glanced at the surrounding people who had been immobilized by the pressure, then said to Ghostly, Ghostly, let them go. After all, I don't want to kill too many people here. Yes, young master. When Ghostly heard this, he nodded in agreement. With a flick of his right hand's middle finger, the suppressive force in the restaurant instantly disappeared. Everyone came back to their senses. Right at this moment, the restaurant, which had been rather quiet, suddenly burst into chaos as Ghost Grim withdrew his pressure. Instantly, Linley frowned, an ugly look on his face. Sigh. If I knew, I wouldn't have let them go. At this moment, Lin Rei was a little regretful. He knew that letting them go would lead to such a scene. For a moment, he really wanted to freeze them. Forget it, let's go. There's no need to bring them here anymore. Seeing this, Linley rose to his feet. He said a few words to everyone, then walked outside. This time, Linley still didn't use his divine sense. He just relied on his own senses to walk outside, one step at a time. At this moment, Lin Rei's actions shocked everyone in the restaurant. They quickly made way for him. As for the dead waiter who was blocking the way, when Lin Rei arrived, a middle-aged man beside him pulled his corpse away and made way for him. The surrounding people all silently praised the middle-aged man's actions. Linley, however, noticed his actions as well. Chuckling, Linley headed outside. At this moment, Ing and the others who were following behind also saw this scene. When they left, they smiled and chased after Lin Rei. After exiting the restaurant, the group began to stroll through the street. Nobody made a sound. They just quietly followed behind Linley as they walked forward. However, as time went on, someone couldn't hold it in any longer. Roughly 2 hours later, Demonic Phoenix, who had been following behind Linley this entire time, came to Linley's side with a jug of wine. Hey Lin Rei, what are you trying to do? Hearing Xie Feng's impatience, Lin Rei smiled and said, Nothing, I just want to see where we're staying tonight. Lin Rei ignored Xie Feng's hint and continued to walk forward. At this moment, after hearing Lin Rei's response, Xie Feng felt helpless. Boy, how about I teach you a spell that will allow you to open up your own space? That way, you won't have to stay in that restaurant. Open up a space? Isn't that something that only Sage Realm experts can do? Lin Rei was a little tempted by the system's sudden words, but he still had common sense. Moreover, he was no longer the silly boy who didn't know anything. He knew about the ability to open up a space. He had heard about it from the little dragon. At that time, Xiaolong had said that this ability to open up space could only be used after reaching the Sage Realm. However, only the experts at the peak of the Sage Realm could cook. That was because the space barrier was very hard. Only the experts at the peak of the Sage Realm could do that. Therefore, Linley didn't believe the words of the system. Chapter 629. TSK, you don't need to know this. If you really want to learn the space opening technique, then quickly break through to the peak of the late Emperor Dan stage. At that time, the space opening technique will naturally be given to you. Moreover, don't worry, at your level, you can definitely open up space. Hearing the system's certainty, Lin Rei was a little doubtful for a moment. However, when he thought about the impossible things that had happened in the past, Lin Rei did not think too much about it. Alright, I will break through to the Emperor God realm in the near future. However, at that time, the space opening technique that you mentioned is true. At this moment, Lin Rei's thoughts were very simple. If there was really a space opening technique, then it would be great. Of course, if there wasn't, then he would not be at a disadvantage. At most, he would be a little disappointed. Be careful, when the time comes, it will definitely be given to you. Of course, this will depend on how hard you work. Moreover, the space opening technique is not as simple as just opening up space. If you master the law of space and time, you can also use the power of space to carry out space strangulation. Listening to the system's words, Lin Rei was a little expectant. However, it was only expectant. This matter would only be confirmed when it was really in his hands. I know. Be careful, I will break through in the near future. I hope this trip to the secret realm will let me obtain something that I can use now. Saying so, Lin Rei was silent. He knew that if he wanted to break through in his cultivation, it would take more than 10 times the effort of an ordinary person to break through. This was also because of his special physique and cultivation technique. Oh, right, the little dragon is about to wake up. If he sees you like this, he might be very happy. The sudden sentence made Lin Rei come together. The little dragon, the person who had fought side by side with him, and taught him, to him, the little dragon was both a teacher and a friend. I know. His tone was very ordinary, but his heart was already excited. The little dragon's awakening was undoubtedly the greatest help to him. At the same time, he had a place to talk about the things that he usually said. Just like that, Lin Rei exited the conversation with the system, and his consciousness returned to reality. He used his divine sense to check the situation around him. He saw that Ing and the others were looking around in boredom. Their faces were filled with boredom. Hee. Looking at Lin Rei, Yi Shiwen smiled. Then, he spread out his divine sense to explore the surroundings to see if there were any hotels or other places where people could stay. At this moment, 100 meters away, there was a restaurant called Cloudy Guest. There were many people there. Looking over, Linley laughed, retracted his divine sense, and said to the people around him, "Let's go. We've found a place to stay." "Oh? Where is it?" Hearing Linley's words, Demonic Phoenix, who was behind him, immediately asked excitedly. It's not far ahead. "Let's go," said Yi Futian to the evil Phoenix. Then, he walked forward at a speed that was neither fast nor slow. A few minutes later, when the group arrived at the restaurant Lin Rei mentioned, Cloud Guest, A waiter came out and greeted Lin Ray and the others with a smile. "Dear guests, may I know if you're staying or having a meal? If you're having a meal, I'll—" Hearing the waiter's words, Linley smiled and nodded in response. "Stay, give us 8 rooms." At this moment, hearing Lin Ray and the others' words, the waiter's face was filled with embarrassment. "Ah, 8 rooms. What's wrong?" Lin Ray frowned at the waiter's words. He didn't want this person to be like the previous shop. Please don't be angry. I didn't mean anything else. It's just that there aren't that many rooms left in the shop. Now there are 4 rooms in the shop. What do you think?" Seeing Lin Ray's expression turn ugly, the waiter hurriedly explained. In this line of work, at the very least, he had to be able to read people's expressions. When he saw the reaction of the person in front of him, he knew what the other party meant. Oh, hearing this, Lin Ray was relieved. However, he was still a little embarrassed about the problem of rooms. After all, there were so many people here. For a moment, the atmosphere became heavy. Linley didn't want to change the location of the discussion. Look at all of you. What's wrong with 4 rooms? I'll share a room with Sistering. You guys can share a room. Really? Xie Feng's words were very sudden. After hearing it, Lin Ray thought about it and agreed. Okay, then it's settled. I'll share a room with Xian Guang and the boys. You and Xie Feng will share a room. As for the rest, you guys can decide. Hearing this, everyone quickly nodded and agreed. In any case, to cultivators, it was not a big deal. As long as there was a place, it was fine. Okay, then please follow me. I'll take you to your rooms now. At this moment, seeing that the problem of rooms was solved, the waiter wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. His expression was much more relaxed. Then, he led Lin Ray inside. Along the way, they walked into the restaurant and then into the room. The moment they entered, the spiritual qi suddenly condensed. The spiritual qi here. Sensing that something was amiss, Linley hurriedly released his cultivation base to check out what he had expected. He saw an invisible formation floating in the air. The array was mysterious. All kinds of unfamiliar runes formed an array that covered the whole restaurant. When Lin Ray discovered the troublesome array in the air, there was a hint of interest on his face. Spirit gathering array, haha. It's not worth it for a grand level array. To be able to see the array at a glance, that means that this person's divine sense and mental strength are very powerful. Moreover, the secret realm will open in a few days. It's very normal for such a person to stay in the restaurant. There's no need to make a fuss. At this moment, not long after the waiter spoke, an ethereal female voice rang out from the room. The waiter's expression became even more respectful when he heard this voice. No, young lady, there's another person beside him. That person seems to be very respectful to the blind young man. Oh? Who's following him? Why are you so concerned about him? At this moment, the girl in the room heard the voice outside and became interested. Young lady, you should know the person behind the young man. He's Long Tian, a middle-stage God-Emperor expert. At this moment, the waiter's expression was extremely respectful as he revealed Long Tian's identity. If Linley were here, he would definitely be even more interested. To be able to recognize Long Tian's identity so easily, the waiter's identity must not be simple. God Emperor Long Tian? At this moment, when he heard the waiter's words, a trace of surprise appeared in the originally calm voice of an ancient well. Amen, God Emperor Long Tian. However, Long Tian is very respectful to the blind young man. What do you think of this matter? Hearing the waiter's words, the room became silent. Not a single sound came out. For a moment, the waiter didn't know what to do. About 10 minutes later, the girl in the room finally spoke. Since that's the case, treat these people well. I'll inform the clan about this matter. Chapter 630. Yes, Mississippi. I know what to do. Looking at the room, the waiter bowed and said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. There are still many things waiting for me outside." Go. Don't be too emotional. I had no choice but to let an emperor god receive guests here. After all, the mystic realm will open in 2 days. I don't want to expose the Yun family's strength too late. Please understand. If the outside world heard these words, they would definitely be shocked. After all, having an emperor god receive guests was something that had never happened before. The waiter heard a trace of apology in the voice coming from the room. He was slightly moved and nodded in response. "It's fine. I'm willing to work for the Yun family. After all, the opening of the mystic realm this time is of great importance." After saying that, the waiter said goodbye again. "All right, I'll take my leave first." Without waiting for the woman in the room to respond, he walked out of the room. Jia. At this moment, just as the waiter left, the door opened and a woman in red walked in. She looked like a delicate young lady from a respectable family. Her skin was snow-white and her face was delicate. She looked like a fairy who had walked out of a painting. Interesting. To have an emperor god as a subordinate, it seems like the waters of sky might city run deep. At this moment, the woman standing at the door looked at the courtyard in the distance. Her red lips moved slightly and her ethereal voice rang out. There was an interesting smile on her face. At this moment, in the room where Lin Rei was in, after parting with the crowd, Lin Rei went back into the room and didn't leave. Within the room, Lin Li, his younger brother, and Xian Guang were seated at a table, drinking tea and eating desserts. They looked quite relaxed and carefree, as though they were enjoying themselves. "Brother Lei, what are we doing next? Are we just going to wait for the mystic realm to open?" At this moment, the young man sitting at the side couldn't help but ask Lin Rei directly. "No, I still have things to do." Lin Rei didn't hide anything and said, "I need to concoct a heaven spirit pill for the next few days. This pill is used to treat Xian Guang's injuries. Once he's healed, the secret realm will open." Xian Guang, who had been listening from the side, trembled. His eyes moistened. Thank you, young master. This is nothing. After all, you are now my subordinate. Moreover, if you recover your strength, it will be of great help to me." Looking at Xian Guang, Lin Li smiled. He then said to the two of them, "All right, you two can wait here for a few days. I'll be refining pills here. Of course, don't disturb me. The ingredients needed to refine the heavenly spirit pill are very expensive. I don't have much." Lin Rei's words stunned the two people beside him. However, the young man recovered first. He still understood Lin Rei. "Understood, Brother Lei. Don't worry, we won't disturb you when you're refining pills." After saying that, he stood up and went to a corner and sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Xian Guang, who had been watching him, saw his actions and also found a corner to cultivate quietly. Looking at the two people's actions, Lin Rei smiled and didn't pay attention to them. This was exactly what he wanted. After all, if he was disturbed during the refining process, the consequences would be very serious. This was not only related to the explosion of the furnace, but more importantly, the spiritual herbs in the furnace were the key. After all, even if the furnace exploded, the heaven and earth Huayu would have a place to stay. Looking at them, he went to an open space outside the room and sat down cross-legged. The heaven and earth Huayu was summoned, but this time, it wasn't as big as before. At this moment, it was only a few meters big. It didn't exceed the limit of the room. The moment the heaven and earth Huayu appeared, the fragrance of medicinal pills filled the entire room. For a moment, the room was filled with the fragrance of medicinal pills, and nothing else could be sensed. This is too fragrant. It seems that Brother Lei is going to refine pills. He even took out the heaven and earth Huayu. At this moment, the two people who had entered the room to cultivate smelled the fragrance of pills in the room. In an instant, their spiritual energy dissipated and they stopped cultivating. The two exited their cultivation and smelled the fragrance of the pills in the air. At this moment, they felt that the spiritual energy in their bodies was surging crazily as they smelled the fragrance of the pills. Of course, Linley didn't have the time to care about their actions. He had to concoct the heavenly spirit pill, but before concocting the pill, the most important thing was to set up a formation around the room to prevent people from entering. Of course, the most important thing was to set up a spiritual energy gathering formation. The denser the spiritual energy in the surrounding area, the higher the quality of the pill would be. Borrow the power of heaven and earth, condense. Spirit gathering spell complete. At this moment, Lin Ray, who was sitting cross-legged, made mysterious seals in his hands. As the seals appeared, the spiritual energy in the surroundings gradually became thicker. At the moment when the spell was completed, the spiritual energy in the surroundings completely liquefied. Hiss! At this moment, when Xian Guang saw this scene, he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. His eyes widened and were filled with disbelief. On the other side, the young man smiled as he watched the spiritual energy in the surroundings become thicker. Then, he went back to cultivating. How could he give up on this opportunity? It's okay. At least it's better than the spirit gathering spell outside. At this moment, Lin Ray looked at the liquefied spiritual energy in the surroundings and smiled. However, if this sentence was heard by the person who set up the spell outside, he would definitely cry. After all, the two spells were of different levels. In his eyes, the spell outside was broken, but in the eyes of others, it was filled with envy. Seeing that the spirit-gathering spell was completed, he immediately began to set up the second spell. This spell was specially designed to protect himself from bombardment. It could be said that it was a combination of attack and defense. It was called Flowing Cloud. As he thought about it, Linley once again began to form seals. One after another, mysterious runes appeared out of thin air. Finally, they began to slowly assemble above his head. Roughly an hour later, an astonishing magic array appeared and protected the entire room. At this moment, Lin Ray, who had finished setting up the spell formation, smiled. It's finally completed. I wonder how powerful this spell formation is. Although the spell formation diagram says that it can withstand the bombardment of a supreme god, after all, I haven't tested it. Of course, thinking was just thinking. He didn't think that there would be a supreme god in Tianwei City. Even if there was, he wouldn't be afraid at all with the 3 ghost kings and Xiefeng protecting him. Forget it, thinking about this is useless. I might as well hurry up and refine pills. Although I'm blind, I can still use my divine sense. If one day I can't use my divine sense, then I'll really be blind. With that, Lin Ray shook his head fiercely, as if he wanted to get rid of all the messy things in his mind. Then, the moment he stopped moving, his divine sense moved and instantly entered the system. He began to search for the spiritual herbs needed to refine the heavenly spirit pill. However, what Linley didn't know was that the energy-gathering formation he had set up was so powerful that it was able to cancel out the energy-gathering formation he had set up in the restaurant. As soon as his exalted level formation appeared, the formation outside the restaurant automatically became unstable. The appearance of this scene alarmed all the higher-ups in the restaurant. Even the red-clothed woman in the courtyard was alarmed. What's going on? How could the spirit-gathering spell disappear? If that's the case, then how did the spell formation that absorbs spiritual energy appear at this time? At this moment, the red-clothed woman in the courtyard came out of her room and raised her head to look at the front yard with a dignified expression. Just a moment ago, the spirit-gathering spell that was engraved in her hand suddenly collapsed. However, when it collapsed, the spiritual energy didn't return to normal. Instead, a strange scene occurred. The moment the spirit-gathering spell collapsed, the surrounding spiritual energy rushed forward. Not only her, but even the restaurant in the front yard was the same. At this moment, The waiter who was serving customers felt the surrounding spiritual energy rush backward. He didn't care about anything else and immediately gave up on his work. His body flashed and instantly disappeared from where he was standing. Soon after, he arrived at the place where the spiritual energy was gathering. It's the place where the blind man lives. Could it be that there's also a spell formation master among these people? Moreover, he's even more skilled than the spell formation masters in the family? At this moment, the waiter who came to Lin Rei's room not far away looked at the place where the spiritual energy was gathering. For a moment, his face was filled with shock and he began to ponder. It seems that this group of people is indeed not simple. We have to be careful in this matter. Perhaps there's a spell formation master among them. At this moment, just as the waiter was pondering, a woman's voice came from behind him. Instantly, the waiter who heard the woman's voice immediately came back to his senses and turned around to look. Miss, it seems that this is going to be interesting. Previously, when I heard your description of that blind young man, I've never heard of anyone in the divine realm who could have such attainments in spell formations. Before this, there was no trace of information in the divine realm at all. It seems that these people are truly not simple. I wonder if they're from the 9th continent or if they're geniuses that have never appeared in the divine realm before. After glancing at the waiter, the red-clothed woman also looked at the room where Lin Rei was at this moment. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. It's not good for people to be filled with curiosity. I advise you to give up on this idea. We're guests here, and I don't want anyone to appear here to spy on us. Furthermore, I won't allow you to disturb my young master's peace here. This will be your first offense, and I won't do anything to you. However, if you do it again, I will make you completely disappear from this world. Of course, this includes this restaurant and the power behind it. Chapter 631. What? At this moment, a black-robed male appeared behind the red-robed girl. His face was filled with killing intent as he whispered a warning into her ears. Nevertheless, the moment they heard the words that were filled with killing intent, the waiter who was a god-emperor and the red-robed girl revealed a look of horror. The waiter who was a god-emperor was still fine. When he heard the sudden voice, he hurriedly turned around and released his cultivation. As for the red-robed girl, she discovered that she had lost control of her body and was stunned on the spot. You are. At this moment, the waiter who was a god-emperor turned around and saw the black-robed male behind the red-robed girl. His face was filled with shock because he had seen this person before. He was in the same group as that blind young man. At this moment, seeing the black-robed male appearing behind him without him noticing, the waiter had a preliminary understanding of this matter. The person in front of him was at least an early-stage hierarch expert. He did not dare to think about it because he did not believe that a young man would have such a powerful subordinate. More importantly, the subordinate was a blind young man. In the divine world, hierarchs were the apex existences. Yet at this moment, he saw a hierarch expert being the subordinate of someone else. For a moment, he did not dare to believe or accept this reality. A brat who is an early-stage god-emperor. I don't care what you are thinking, but there is one thing you must remember. That is to not disturb my young master's peace. This time is an exception. My young master wants to stay here for a few days. Hence, I will not be too busy with you. Similarly, this is the first and last time. I do not wish for there to be a next time. If you do, no matter who you are, even if you are a top-notch sect like the Universal Sect, I will make you disappear completely. The two people's faces were filled with shock, fear, dread, and disbelief. However, they could not help but nod to the black-clothed man's words. They knew that if they did not agree, this place would cease to exist. Yes, Senior. It is us who have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. This junior guarantees that we will not come here again. I hope that senior will not harm my young master. At that moment the waiter was filled with regret. If he had known earlier, he would not have come here. In the end, things had turned out like this. At that moment, the person who appeared before the two of them was none other than Ghostly, who was a half-saint. Just a moment ago, when he felt the abnormal movement of the spiritual chi, he immediately used his divine sense to discover that it was his young master who had done all of this. However, at that moment, he discovered that the woman in red was his own waiter. For a moment, Ghostly couldn't sit still. He immediately teleported behind the two of them, and then this scene occurred. Be careful, I won't hurt her. Ghostly had no intention of doing anything to the woman in red. With that, he disappeared and returned to his room. Phew, the waiter, who had been staring in the direction of the woman in red, relaxed the moment he saw that the man in black had disappeared. Then, his body flashed and instantly appeared in front of the woman in red. Without waiting for her response, he grabbed the woman in red and teleported back to the courtyard behind. However, at that moment, the two of them still hadn't recovered from their previous panic. At that moment, Lin Rei, who was in the room, was completely unaware of what had happened outside. He also didn't know that his spirit-gathering formation had caused a series of events. At that moment, Lin Rei had already taken out 2 sets of elixirs for refining the heavenly spirit pill from his ring. When he used his divine sense to look at the 2 sets of elixirs on the ground, his heart ached faintly. Oh my God, I worked so hard to collect these elixirs. I just took them out like this. Although Lin Rei's face didn't show any expression, his heart had already been exposed. Ugh. Damn it, if it weren't for the fact that you're a divine venerable expert, I would never have given you such a good elixir. Although he said so, he still had to save this person. After all, this person would be of great use to him in the future. Moreover, the system also said that Xian Guang would break through to the Saint Realm. At that time, he would be a great help to him. Forget it, I don't want to think about it. After all, I've already agreed. If I don't save him, it won't be my style. Thinking about this, Lin Rei made up his mind. Immediately, the illusory spirit blood fire appeared in an instant and entered the worldly splendor to heat up the cauldron. In just a few seconds, the cauldron was heated up. Of course, this was Lin Rei's illusory spirit blood fire. If it were any other flame, it would probably take 3 to 5 days to heat up the cauldron. Even the undying flame wouldn't be enough. After all, the worldly splendor was given to him by the system. Although it wasn't a top existence, it was still a rare dragon soul jade. The dragon soul jade was an existence similar to a star's core. Of course, it wasn't a real star's core. Instead, it was something that had the shape of a dragon's soul because of its hardness. This item had already been produced for a long time. Therefore, even the big shots in the divine realm might not necessarily know of its existence. Looking at the cauldron heating up, Lin Rei used his divine sense to search for a kind of elixir, the snow bone. Then, with a wave of his left hand, the snow bone was instantly thrown into the worldly splendor. Haha, it's starting. I hope this time I can succeed. After all, I haven't concocted many venerable grade elixirs. Looking at the snow bone that was surrounded by the illusory spirit blood fire, Lin Rei's face was filled with hope. However, things often don't go as planned. The more you hope for success, the more disappointed you will be. At this moment, the snow bone that was surrounded by the illusory spirit blood fire in the worldly splendor turned into a pile of powder the moment it came in contact with the illusory spirit blood fire. It sank to the bottom of the worldly splendor, becoming a waste product. Damn, this must have cost a lot of money to buy this. Looking at the failure of his first concoction, Lin Rei's heart ached. Looking at the snow bone that he had ruined, Lin Rei felt like his heart was bleeding. Phew, let's do it again. The fire from before flared up again, and it's a spiritual medicine of the Yin attribute. This time, I just have to suppress the illusory spirit blood fire to the lowest temperature. Thinking of the snow bone's attribute, Lin Rei could only concoct it using his own method. After all, the recipe only stated how to concoct it, but it didn't say how to use the flame, let alone a flame like the illusory spirit blood fire. The second concoction began. This time, Lin Rei suppressed the illusory spirit blood fire to the lowest temperature. Puff, puff. He didn't have any hope at first, but suddenly, he heard a sound coming from the worldly splendor. Then, Lin Rei, who heard the strange sound, used his divine sense to explore. When he saw that the snow bone in the cauldron was melting little by little, and was being refined, Lin Rei was finally relieved. Although the process was a little long as the snow bone didn't turn into a waste, it was a success. However, Lin Rei didn't know everything that happened after he arranged the formation. At that moment, the red-clothed lady in the courtyard behind had nothing but shock on her face. "Miss, I've misjudged this time. I really didn't expect the other party to have such a strong existence. Moreover, that person's cultivation level is at least at the initial stage ultimate god realm, but I can't guarantee that it's higher. Moreover, there are a few people like that around the blind young man. If I'm not wrong, they should be like that person, ultimate god realm." At that moment, the waiter looked at the lady who was in a daze with a helpless expression. Sigh. "I know, this matter seems to be more serious than I thought. If it's as you guessed, there are so many ultimate gods around him, then who is this person? Does he belong to that US? I'm very curious about this." The waiter looked at the lady and was stunned for a moment. He remembered the black-clothed man's warning and quickly reminded her, "Miss, forget it. We can't afford to offend this kind of person. Since the other party has already warned us, then let's not provoke them anymore." What if? All right, don't interfere in this matter. I know what I'm doing." Before the other party could finish speaking, the woman in red hurriedly interrupted and walked towards the room after saying that. At that moment, the waiter stood still and looked at the red-clothed lady's back. Suddenly, he sighed and didn't say anything. Ghostly didn't know that the red-clothed lady didn't listen to his warning at all. Although she was terrified, she was more and more interested in Lin Rei. 3 days had passed since this incident. During these 3 days it was very quiet. The red-clothed lady and the waiter didn't go to Lin Rei's room again. During these few days, Lin Rei had been refining elixirs in his room. After the first failure, although the snow bone was successfully refined, the refinement of the other elixirs failed several times. However, this didn't hinder the use of Lin Rei's elixir refining. Finally, on this day, 3 days later, Lin Rei, who was in his room, had a happy smile on his face. "Haha, only the last step is left to form the elixir. I hope there won't be any mistakes. Otherwise, I'll really have to scold someone." As he spoke, he used his divine sense to sense everything in the cauldron. Immediately, the seals changed rapidly. One by one, the seals of the divine weapon were formed. At this moment, the pills in the cauldron began to merge. Slowly, the shape of an elixir began to take shape. As the shape of the elixir appeared, waves of elixir fragrance also appeared at this moment. "Haha, it's finally almost done." Smelling the fragrance of the elixir, Lin Rei's face showed traces of a smile. Drink. Elixir. Formed. Finally, at this moment, looking at the shape of the elixir, Lin Rei's speed of forming seals became faster and faster. In the end, the shape of the elixir in the cauldron became solid. Seeing this, Lin Rei shouted loudly. The last seal was formed. In an instant, a golden light came out from the cauldron. Then, the fragrance of the elixir filled the entire room, enveloping everyone in the room. Chapter 632. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Right as the pills were formed, 3 sonic booms could be heard, and 3 streaks of red light shot out from the skies, flying towards Linley. His speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, He had arrived in front of Linley, hovering there in terror. Hee. Looking at the pills flying in front of him, Linley's face was filled with an excited smile, and his heart was filled with satisfaction. Although he had only learned how to concoct pills in his free time, and when he didn't have the resources, the more he learned, the more he felt that concocting pills was a very blissful thing. Looking at the pills in front of him, Linley laughed. If those self-proclaimed grandmasters of alchemy in the deity realm were to see these 3 pills, they would probably be so stunned that they wouldn't be able to speak. If he had known earlier, the higher the grade of an elixir, the more likely it was to have a spirit. The 3 sky spirit elixirs in front of him had already developed a spirit. Although zone-grade elixirs also had a spirit, it could only float in the cauldron, unlike these 3 zone-grade sky spirit elixirs. Phew, this is really not easy. Although Lin Ray had a smile on his face, he couldn't help but feel worried when he thought about how many spiritual herbs he had used to refine these 3 pills. The spirit herbs that had been consumed weren't just for refining the heavenly spirit pill. They were also the main ingredients for refining other pills, and now they were almost all used up. Alas, it seems like I have to hurry up and collect more spiritual herbs. Otherwise, I will be in trouble the next time. After saying that, Lin Ray decided to wait until Xian Guang's cultivation recovered. He would go to the auction house to get some spiritual herbs. Only then would he be prepared. Collect. Looking at the 3 red pills that were the size of longans in the air, he formed 3 hand seals and picked up the medicine he had prepared. The 3 heaven spirit pills obediently entered the medicine bottle. Phew, it's finally done. I didn't think that refining a single pill would take so much time. It seems like I have to familiarize myself with it. Thinking about that, a smile appeared on his face. He slowly walked towards Xian Guang. At this moment, Xian Guang was stunned. His eyes were wide open and his face was full of surprise. When Linley saw Xian Guang's current appearance, he subconsciously asked, You couldn't have spent the past few days just watching me concoct pills without cultivating, right?" Hearing these words, Xian Guang, who had been in a daze, came back to his senses, his face flushed red. He avoided Linley's gaze but said honestly, young master, it's not that I don't want to train anymore. It's just that the way you concocted pills truly stunned me. In addition, this room is filled with the fragrance of pills. How can I possibly enter a meditative state to train? Haha. Hearing Xian Guang's reply, Linley didn't know what to say. The moment Xian Guang gave this reason, Linley subconsciously glanced at his younger brother, who was meditating. Then he smiled and took out the pills he had refined. Here, this is the heavenly spirit pill to restore your single spiritual root. Thank you, young master. Looking at the pill in front of him, Xian Guang's face was full of excitement. He knew that the pill was successfully refined, so he wasn't too surprised. In the past few days, this mysterious young man in front of him had given him too many surprises. Haha, don't thank me. This is what I should do. Seeing Xian Guang's gratitude, Lin Ray didn't say anything. The Heaven Spirit Pill is a supreme level pill. When you eat it, you must remember not to eat too much. Although it can help you recover your spiritual root, if you eat too much, it will only harm you. In the end, your spiritual root won't be healed, and you will lose the rest of your spiritual root. Linley didn't want to say too much about dazzling light, but at the very least, he had to give him some instructions. Eat one first. When you feel that your spiritual roots have recovered and your power has returned to the Emperor level, eat another. As for the third Sky Spirit pill, do the same as before. After you eat the second pill and your power returns to the Exalt level, eat the third. Looking at Xian Guang's excited appearance, Lin Ray said unhurriedly, when you finish eating the third pill, your cultivation will return to normal. At that time, your spiritual root will be completely recovered. The road of cultivation will be smooth and there won't be any obstacles. Plop. Lin Rei, who was facing away from Xian Guang, heard a strange sound behind him. Immediately, he released his divine sense and checked Xian Guang's movements. He didn't go forward to help him. "Young master, thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that I wouldn't have been able to recover my cultivation." After saying that, the tears in his eyes were washed away. It was as if a dam had been opened. The water in the canal flowed out uncontrollably for a long time. It was simply out of control. At this moment, Xian Guang's tears could be described as flowing down his face. Although his cultivation had regressed to the monarch god realm, he had regressed to the monarch god realm for more than 100,000 years. It was impossible for him to have the appearance of a middle-aged man like before. Hee, alright, don't cry. How old are you? Even if you don't feel ashamed, I feel ashamed. Looking at Xian Guang's appearance, Lin Rei said helplessly, "Quickly get up. I will go out first. You stay here and cultivate. As for your younger brother, don't worry about him. When he wakes up and sees you cultivating, he will naturally go out." After saying that, Lin Rei didn't wait for Xian Guang to say anything. He didn't want to talk too much with this old man. In the end, Xian Guang cried even more happily. After saying that to Xian Guang, his body flashed and disappeared from the room. As for the formation inside, Lin Rei didn't remove it. Although he wasn't refining pills inside, Xian Guang still needed to recover his cultivation. Although he had the help of the heavenly spirit pill, if he had the support of spiritual qi, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Sigh. As for Xian Guang, he was still kneeling on the ground, weeping tears of gratitude. Seeing Linli disappear, he sighed and rose to his feet, but the look of gratitude in his eyes didn't fade away. "Young master, don't worry. Since you have fulfilled your promise to me, I, Xian Guang, will not go back on my words. From now on, I will obey your every command." As soon as these words came out, the sky suddenly darkened. Although it was just a glimpse, Xian Guang still felt it. He knew that the great Tao had confirmed his vow. Xian Guang felt this and smiled. At this moment, the wrinkles on Xian Guang's face wrinkled together. His whole person became very ugly. He looked outside the window and immediately took out a heavenly spirit pill from the pill bottle and ate it. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to refine the pill. The pill melted in his mouth and its fragrance overflowed. Suddenly, a terrifying energy appeared and rushed towards his dantian. At this moment Lin Rei came out. He didn't look for Ying and the others. Instead, he went to the street alone and looked around. As expected, the opening of a mysterious world is a big event for the entire divine world. At this moment, walking on the street, there were divine emperors. Although this was a big city, it wasn't that big. On this day, there weren't many ordinary people on the street. This was impossible in the past. Moreover, among them, there were some cultivation techniques and clothes that he had never seen before. Lin Rei frowned. Tsk. I've only left the celestial realm for the ghost realm for such a short period of time, and the celestial realm has changed so much. I don't even recognize the clothes of these people. It seems that I'll have to update the forces in the celestial realm soon. Thinking about this, Lin Rei laughed at himself. Then, he walked forward. He didn't know the purpose of this trip. He just felt that he should go out for a walk since he was refining pills in his room. However, when he came out, he realized that he didn't know where to go. It was that simple. He walked forward aimlessly. His face was full of boredom. Bang! There was a loud sound, accompanied by a huge energy wave that came from not far away. As soon as the sound came out, Lin Rei, who was bored to death, became spirited. His face was full of smiles as he explored the road with his divine sense. He laughed and said, I was worried that there was nothing to do. I didn't expect that there would be so much fun. At this moment, he was not like before. Lin Rei's face was full of smiles. He quickened his pace and rushed forward. When the secret territory was about to open, there would naturally be a lot of fights. However, one Flash was in charge of those cities, and did not allow anyone to mess around in the city. However, Linley was curious as to why this city was like this. But no matter what, having fun to relieve his boredom was the happiest thing in the world right now. At this moment, in front of him, there was a very large open space. Two young men stood facing each other. Both of them had a look of dissatisfaction on their faces. Moreover, the weapons used by both of them were the best weapons. The sword was the most respected. Humph, Zhuiyang, I don't have any enmity with the Danzong sect. Why are you treating me like this? Aren't you afraid of causing a war between the equipment refining sect and the Danzong sect? At this moment, one of the young men in the field pointed at the other person and said. It seemed that he didn't want to fight. However, just because he didn't want to fight, it didn't mean that others didn't want to. At this moment, when the young man named Jian Zhuiyang heard this, his face was full of mockery. He said, Hee the Danzong sect? What else can your alchemy sect do besides concocting pills? All your sects rely on pills to get to where they are. Do you really think that our tool refining sect is afraid? As for the war between the sects, do you think the Danzong sect will go to war with the equipment refining sect for you? Hearing this, the young man's face changed. He knew that the other party was right, but he was also very helpless about it. Chu Ci, give up resisting. You are no match for me. You are just a divine emperor who relied on pills. How can you be a match for me? Seeing that the situation was so tense, the surrounding people didn't look excited. At this moment, the onlookers couldn't wait for them to fight so that they could watch a good show. Chapter 633. Danzong Sect? Equipment Refining Sect? At this moment, Lin Rei, who had already arrived, was standing in a corner, observing the conversation between the two with his divine sense. However, he was a little confused by the words, Danzong Sect, and Equipment Refining Sect. At this moment, Lin Rei searched all the sects in his mind, but in the end, he didn't find any that called themselves Danzong Sect or Equipment Refining Sect. Haha, interesting. It seems that the realm of the gods is getting more and more interesting. There are actually these two sections, I just don't know the best level of equipment refining and pill refining in their sections. At this moment, if the two knew what Lin Rei was thinking, they would definitely laugh at him. After all, he was a blind man at this moment. As for his strength and cultivation, unless he wanted to, no one would be able to detect it. What do you want? At this moment, the young man called Chu Ci asked Zhuiyang, his face full of embarrassment. Nothing. I don't want to embarrass you outside. After all, you and I are from the same place. I know why you came this time, and I'm going too. It's inevitable that there will be some clashes inside. So, you understand. As soon as he said this, Lin Rei was completely speechless. Damn it, after all this time, it turned out that he didn't have any pills. Damn it, Lin Rei was no longer interested in them. He originally came with interest to watch the show, but now it was all over. Hearing Zhuiyang's words, Chu Ci was a little reluctant for a moment. TSK, this time I came out in a hurry. I only brought one set of pills. If I had known that I would encounter such trouble, I would have brought more. His heart was in a dilemma. Even so, he didn't dare to go head-on against this person whose cultivation level was higher than his. After all, he only cultivated an alchemy cultivation method and didn't have any attacking power at all. Other than the fact that the flames he cultivated were a little explosive, the other party also happened to have flames, so Chu Ci thought about it for a moment. Even though she was conflicted, she still nodded and agreed in the end. All right, I'll give it to you. However, let's make it clear that this matter ends here. As long as I give you the medicinal pill, you can't do this again. At this moment, Zhuoyang, who was standing opposite of Chu Si, slightly raised the corners of his mouth when he heard Chu Si's words. He revealed a smile as if he had succeeded in his scheme. However, this smile only flashed for a moment. Even Chu Si, who was closest to him, did not notice it. "All right, our two sects are on good terms. This time, we had no choice but to do so. So, don't worry. Just this once. I won't do it again." Hearing this, Chu Si's face relaxed a little. With a thought, more than a dozen bottles of pills appeared in her hand. A trace of reluctance flashed in her eyes, but for the sake of her own life, she reluctantly gave them up. "Here, these are all of my pills." Looking at the pills in front of him, a smile appeared on Zhuoyang's face. He said straightforwardly, "All right, thank you very much this time." As he spoke, he casually took the pills and placed them in his storage ring. As the saying goes, a woman's face changes as quickly as the weather in June. However, one did not know that a man's face changes faster than a woman's. Zhuoyang, who had already taken the pills for himself, was still a magnanimous gentleman a second ago. In the next moment, he had cultivated the face of a despicable and shameless villain. At this moment, a kick as fast as lightning landed solidly on Chu Si's body. With a muffled bang, a figure was instantly sent flying in a parabola. In the end, she fell on the ground with a perfect posture. It had to be said that Zhuoyang's cultivation was really not to be underestimated. With just one kick, he sent Chu Si flying 10 meters away. Pooh! At this moment, Chu Si, who was lying on the ground, looked at Zhuoyang in disbelief. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning in her heart. Chu Si, who was lying on the ground, felt her stomach churn. Then, she tasted something sweet in her throat. For a moment, she could not hold back the bright red blood that flowed out of her mouth. Her face turned deathly pale in an instant. Looking at Zhuoyang in the distance, Chu Si glared at him angrily. She looked as if she wanted to eat him. Her eyes were completely bloodshot. At this moment, she looked as if she had been possessed by the devil. The world is dangerous. What? Didn't your master tell you? Moreover, do you really think that I would be like this with a piece of trash who specializes in alchemy? Zhuoyang said with a mocking smile as he looked at Chu Si lying on the ground. In response, the surrounding onlookers only had ridicule and sarcasm on their faces. There was not the slightest bit of pity. "Oh right, I forgot to tell you. This time, I didn't know that you would come again. However, I don't know who was so kind as to send me a message. As for what it said, I don't need to say it. You should know." Boom! At this moment, Chu Si, who was lying on the ground, heard Zhuoyang's words. Her mind instantly went blank. Her face was filled with confusion and speculation. No, don't believe him. Don't believe him. It's not like this. No, it's not like this. No one would do this. At this moment, Chu Si's heart was in a mess. Although she told herself not to believe Zhuoyang's words, she couldn't help but start sifting through the people who came from the Danzong sect. This brat seems to be inexperienced. He was actually fooled by just a few words. In a corner of the field, Lin Rei, who had been observing the scene, rekindled his interest. Although he sympathized with Chu Si, he didn't make a move. After all, the two of them didn't know each other. There was no reason for them to do so. "Brat, don't go up. That's an alchemy genius. Although she's not as good as Lin Mei, she's only second to you. If such a genius was placed in your Xuanzong sect, where only geniuses can enter, with her alchemy skills, it's hard to imagine what kind of scene it would be in the future." At this moment, just when Lin Rei was about to ignore Chu Si's sympathy, the system's voice rang out. However, Lin Rei was momentarily stunned by its words. Even so, the dazed Lin Rei couldn't help but look at Chu Si. A trace of interest appeared in his eyes. "It's her." At this moment, after hearing Zhuoyang's words, Chu Si's mind kept reminding her. In the end, he selected the person who was at odds with him and who was most likely to turn him into such a person from the Danzong sect. Finally, that figure appeared in his mind. However, when he realized that the person who was most likely to betray him was his fiancée, a trace of pain appeared on his face. No, impossible, would never do this to me. It must be. Zhuiyang must be lying to me. Yes, it must be. At this moment, when he realized that the person who was most likely to harm him was his fiancée, Chu Ci tried his best to avoid the possibility that he had thought of. You go to hell. At this moment, Chu Ci, who had gone mad, stood up from the ground in an instant. Holding the 3-foot-long cold gleam in his hand, his chi refinement swept across the universe. His eyes were bloodshot as he released his cultivation. His robes fluttered without any wind, making him look like a ghost from the underworld. In an instant, Chu Ci took a step forward. With the 3-foot-long cold gleam in his hand, he rushed towards Zhuiyang, who still had a mocking expression on his face. Aunt, a speck of light dares to compete with the bright moon? You're courting death. At this moment, Zhuiyang, who was standing in the same spot with a mocking expression, looked at Chu Ci, who was rushing towards him. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. The long sword in his hand was held horizontally. Sword chi rushed out in an instant. He took a step forward and arrived next to Chu Ci in an instant. Humph, how can someone who uses pills be on the same level as me? What? Hearing Zhuiyang's voice, Chu Ci's eyes immediately froze and his face was filled with shock. Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. I will, ******, your fiancé. Chu Ci didn't know how to react after hearing this. The long sword in Zhuiyang's hand swung out and Chu Ci's wrist, which was holding the 3-foot-long cold gleam, was instantly cut open. Clang! Chu Ci's wrist was cut open and the long sword in his hand fell to the ground with a loud clang. Bang! At this moment, Zhuiyang didn't stop after cutting Chu Ci's wrist. He directly kneed Chu Ci's abdomen and immediately sent him flying again. Bang! 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 Chu Ci's body only came to a stop a dozen meters away. However, Zhuiyang's attack wasn't light. At this moment, Chu Ci was lying on the ground with blood gushing out of his mouth. His wrist was in extreme pain and his entire body was curled up. Good. Ha ha. Good. The onlookers were even more excited when they saw the current scene, especially when they saw blood. They immediately clapped and cheered. At this moment, the scene was like a cage. It was as though they were fighting in a cage, and the surrounding onlookers were merely spectators. Linley, who was off to the side, began to frown. What, you still don't want to go? I already told you, there won't be anyone like this after this village. There aren't many people like this, of course, except for a heaven-defying existence like you. At this moment, Lin Rei's heart was very conflicted. Especially after hearing the system's words, he was even more conflicted. However, at this moment, the scene outside was about to be revealed. At this moment, Zhuiyang, with a long sword in hand, walked step by step towards Chu Ci, who was curled up on the ground with a mocking expression. At this moment, Zhuiyang was already emitting killing intent. He was going to kill someone. You, Chu Ci, who was lying on the ground with serious injuries, looked at Zhuiyang, who was walking towards him with a frightened expression, and stuttered. Die for me. Zhuiyang looked at Chu Ling with killing intent. He waved his long sword and chopped down at Chu Ci. Chapter 634. The sound of weapons clashing instantly reached everyone's ears, including Chu Ci, who had already accepted her fate and closed her eyes. At that moment, a young man who was not dressed extravagantly but had the aura of a leader blocked the long sword that was about to hit Chu Ci with his spear. Immediately, the long sword stopped in its tracks, unable to move an inch. Even though Zhuiyang's expression was extremely unsightly and he increased the strength of his hand, he was still unable to do anything. Instantly, the sound of weapons clashing was heard by everyone present. At that moment, everyone was stunned because the result they wanted did not happen. Not only that, they did not even know when the young man made his move. Even Zhuoyang, who was in the same situation as him, did not detect any trace of the young man at all. At that moment, the first to come to his senses was Zhuoyang, who was about to kill Chu Ci. At that moment, he looked at the young man in front of him and was stunned when he saw his face. Therefore, he was looking at none other than Lin Rei, who had been hesitating for a long time before making his move. Just as Zhuoyang was about to kill Chu Ci, Lin Rei finally had an answer. Although the Xuanzong sect did not need Chu Ci's talent, she was still an expert in pill refinement after all. Furthermore, Lin Mei was still young, so he had to make his move in the end. Haha kid, I'll protect this person. You'd better do what you're supposed to do. Hiss! At that moment everyone came to their senses. When they heard Lin Rei's words, they were all intimidated by his domineering tone. Perhaps only Lin Rei could say something like that. He was so domineering and disregarded the consequences. What? You want to go against the tool refining sect? You should know that the tool refining sect is one of the top sects in the 9th continent. You'd better think carefully. When he sensed the aura of the person in front of him and combined it with what had just happened, he knew that he was definitely no match for the person in front of him. Threats were the only thing he could do now. However, the moment Zhuoyang finished speaking, Lin Rei was stunned. His body stopped moving and he just stood there in a daze. I didn't expect it to be from the 9th continent. Looks like entering the 9th continent is a must. If we know which sects are in the 6th continent, it will be much more convenient to enter. At that moment, Zhuoyang felt an indescribable satisfaction in his heart when he saw the blind young man's stunned expression. In his opinion, this person's reaction was completely due to the sect behind him. Zhuoyang was relieved because of this. What they didn't know was that Lin Rei's actions had nothing to do with whether he was from the Tool sect or not. Say, Senior, you should leave. The sect master of the equipment refining sect is at the peak of the god realm, and there are 3 supreme gods among the supreme elders. As for the cultivators at the god monarch realm and the god emperor realm, I don't even know how many of them there are. You don't have to risk your life here for me. At that moment, Zhuoyang, who was lying on the ground, looked at the young man in front of him with a pale face. After hearing that he was from the equipment refining sect, Zhuoyang thought that Lin Rei was afraid. Although he was a little disappointed that the final outcome of his death would not change, it was good that someone could stand up for him at a time like this. Zhuoyang snapped out of his thoughts and heard Chu Ci's words behind him. For a moment, he looked a little unhappy. Damn, can you do it? You're a cultivator in alchemy after all. Can you not be so disheartened? At that moment Chu Ci, who was a little caught off guard by Lin Rei's reprimand, was stunned on the spot. His face was full of doubts. Zhuoyang was the same. When he heard Lin Rei's words, he was stunned on the spot for a moment. His face was full of confusion and he didn't know what to do. Equipment refining sect? What's that? This venerable has never heard of it. I only know that I'll protect this person. Even if a supreme god or a saint comes, this venerable will still say the same thing. Stand on your own and retreat. This matter can be discussed easily. Otherwise, at this point, a shocking murderous aura rushed out in an instant. It was accompanied by the full release of the cultivation of a middle-stage god emperor. The god emperor's power instantly rolled over Zhuoyang's body. Pooh! At that moment, Zhuoyang spat out a mouthful of blood without warning. Immediately, he looked at the mysterious person who appeared in front of him with a look of disbelief. At that moment, Zhuoyang's body trembled uncontrollably as he felt the suppression of this great cultivation. After stuttering out 3 he couldn't say anything else. He was stunned on the spot. Thinking back to his appearance just now, he felt a burning pain on his face. The words he said just now were undoubtedly slaps on his face. Hee, this matter is settled. Haha, alright, it's decided then. I want this person. Oh, right, if you're not convinced, you can come and look for me anytime. My name is Linley. I live in, I forgot. Anyway, it's right here in the middle of the city. I've been very bored these past 2 days, Linley said to Zhuoyang, who was so frightened that he was in a daze. Turning around, he didn't wait for Chu Ci to react. Grabbing Chu Ci by the shoulders, Linley exerted some force, lifting Chu Ci into the air. Seeing that the matter in front of him was over, Lin Rei carried Chu Ci and walked away. At this moment, when Lin Rei left, the surrounding onlookers hurriedly made way for him. With regards to the cultivation displayed by this blind person just now, who could fight against him? Thank you. Looking at the people who made way for him, Lin Rei thanked them and then took a step forward. In an instant, he disappeared on the spot. Hiss, what a fierce person! Isn't that right? Also, I heard that those 2 people are from the 9th continent. From their tone, they seem to be from large sections. That's right. However, I think I've seen that blind young man somewhere before. TSK. At this moment, Lin Rei's departure caused the crowd to start discussing. However, at this moment, a middle-aged man spoke. However, his words were met with disdain from the surrounding people. TSK, you don't even have a draft for your bragging. I'm convinced. You're awesome? Alright. Looking at the person who said that he had seen Lin Rei before, the crowd gave him a thumbs up and left. They had come here to join in the fun, and now that the fun was over, there was no need for them to stay. The show was over, but Zhuoyang, who had sensed Lin Rei's shocking killing intent and pressure, was still standing there in a daze. His body was still the same as before, but it was not trembling. However, Lin Rei, who had caused all this, had already brought Chu Ci to a quiet alley. He put her down and leaned against the wall without saying a word. The scene was very awkward. Chu Ci, who had been released by Lin Rei, was sitting on the ground due to her injuries. Due to the pain, her face was very pale, and large beads of sweat flowed down her cheeks. Sigh. Seeing that Chu Ci was in pain but did not make a sound, Lin Rei immediately felt a little better about her. Then, he took out some supreme and grand-level healing pills from his ring and handed them to Chu Ci. Eat it. You'll be fine after eating it. At this moment Chu Ci, who was in pain, looked up when she heard Lin Rei's words. However, when Chu Ci saw the pills in Lin Rei's pill bottle, she was stunned. Her face was full of shock, as if the pain was no longer important at this moment. Haha, you're really a little guy who likes to refine pills. Looks like I'm right this time. Lin Rei, who was using his divine sense, could naturally sense the look in the young man's eyes. In response, Lin Rei smiled. This is a grand level top pill? There are 10 pill rhymes on it. How is this possible? Looking at the pill in front of her, Chu Ci was very shocked. She did not know what to say about this scene. She did not expect that she would be able to see the grand level top pill with 10 pill rhymes that she had always dreamed of. No, this is not a grand level pill. It can be refined. No, who refined this? Finally, unable to resist the temptation of the pill, Chu Ci asked Linley. Her unquestionable tone made Linley want to laugh. However, since he had already achieved his goal, he smiled inwardly and said, "Don't worry." Nonsense, since it's in my hands, of course it was refined by me. You're so silly that you're adorable. Lin Rei looked at Chu Ci and said. Then, he stepped forward and grabbed Chu Ci's chin. The moment he opened Chu Ci's mouth with his other hand, he swallowed the pill. Ah! Medicinal pills, my medicinal pills. A blood-curdling scream came out of Chu Ci's mouth. At this moment, Lin Rei had already released Chu Ci. Since he had achieved his goal, he naturally did not need to treat Chu Si that way. However, Lin Rei did not dare to believe Chu Si's reaction. Even though she knew that he loved pills, there was no need for him to act like this. Alright, stop talking. Hurry up and sit down cross-legged to absorb the pill in your body. You're very weak now. Moreover, what that person said before was very pertinent. Your eyebrows were basically formed by pills. Not to mention him, even a godly emperor cultivator, if he was proficient in battle techniques, could definitely suppress you. At this time, Linley didn't hold back at all. He wasn't afraid of offending the person in front of him. After all, he was going to be the one to teach him in the future. He didn't want him to be so addicted to refining pills. Occasionally cultivating was also good for alchemy. I sigh. Chu Si's heart ached because of the pills, but when he heard Lin Rei's words, he became depressed. His face was full of struggle. Sigh, you might not know this, but I am. However, just as he was about to speak, Linley roared at him in a domineering tone. First, refine the pills in your body and let your injuries heal. Otherwise, those injuries will leave behind sequelae, which will only be detrimental to your future cultivation. Chapter 635. Hearing this, Chu Si was stunned for a moment before nodding helplessly. He circulated his cultivation technique and began to swallow the healing pill that had entered his body. Huff! Huff! Seeing Chu Si's reaction, Lin Rei smiled and took out the wine that Jean Ling had prepared for him on planet Aqua Blue. He took out a bottle and began to drink. Refining this pill required a large amount of energy. Therefore, Lin Rei was not in a hurry at all. Holding the wine, he did not care if the floor was dirty. He sat down cross-legged and waited. At this moment, in a restaurant in the west of Tianwei City, a very beautiful woman was about to sit down at the dining table. She looked anxious and could not swallow her food. There were a few other people sitting with her. At this moment, a young man said, "Senior Sister Yun, hurry up and eat. Chu Si will be fine." "That's right, Senior Sister Yun. Senior Brother Chu is a cultivator in the Immortal Monarch realm. How could anything happen to him? Moreover, he is the next sect leader of our Danzong sect. There's no need to be so anxious." Senior Brother Chu is not back yet. He must have gone somewhere else to inquire about something. Let's hurry up and eat. Moreover, didn't you always dislike Senior Brother Chu? Why are you, at this moment, the first person spoke, followed by the others who quickly tried to persuade her. However, when the last person spoke, everyone at the dining table was stunned and smiled bitterly in their hearts. Sigh, this fool. Saying this at this time is like the god of longevity hanging himself. He's courting death. Looking at the youngest person in the group, who was also the last person to speak, everyone's faces were filled with helplessness. Haha, junior brother, you're wrong. Although I don't really like Senior Brother Chu. He's still my fiancé. What if something happens to him? At this moment, the woman surnamed Yun looked at everyone with an ugly expression and said, "Alright, you guys eat first. I'll go outside and look for him." After saying that, the woman surnamed Yun stood up. She looked anxious and took a step forward. In an instant, she disappeared from the restaurant. At this moment, if Chu Si was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that the person who spoke was none other than his fiancée, Yun Kai, whom he had previously suspected of wanting to harm him. Tisk, standing there in a hurry, I really don't know if she's acting or what. I really don't understand what this woman wants to do. At this moment, the moment the clouds disappeared, the youngest junior brother sitting at the dining table said with a displeased expression, "Ugh!" As soon as this was said, everyone was stunned for a moment, but no one responded. Everyone lowered their heads and began to eat. At this moment, Yun Kai, who had gone out to search for Chu Si, had released her divine sense to search a radius of 1 mile. Not only that, but in order to find Chu Si as quickly as possible, she was using her divine sense to inquire about Chu Si from the surrounding people. However, at this moment Chu Si, whom she was looking for, was in a secluded alley, refining medicinal pills and recovering from his injuries. Phew! TSK, a medicinal pill with a Dan rhythm is indeed extraordinary. I've only refined half of it and I'm about to recover from my injuries. At this moment, Chu Si exclaimed in amazement when she felt that her body was about to recover. However, she immediately felt disappointed. Sigh. My body is already immune to medicinal pills. If it wasn't for this medicinal pill with a Dan rhythm, I'm afraid I wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Thinking of this, Chu Si couldn't help but think of the person who had saved him today. Although he was inexperienced in the ways of the world, he knew that one's mouth was soft and one's hands were soft. Furthermore, it was such a precious medicinal pill. He didn't believe that there was such a thing as a free lunch in the world. However, Lin Rei couldn't care less about what he was thinking at this moment. Since he had already boarded the pirate ship, was there any possibility of getting off? The answer was that it was impossible. At this moment, Lin Rei, who had been guarding Chu Si all this time, used his divine sense to investigate his current state. His brows immediately furrowed. Tisk sigh. I really don't know what you're thinking when you're so high on medicinal pills. Just like this, if you don't get rid of the accumulated medicinal toxins in your body, I'm afraid your life is over. Forget it, let me help you. With your body's immunity to medicinal pills now, I'm afraid you won't be able to fully absorb this medicinal pill. Letting out a sigh, Linley was filled with helplessness. The wine bottles stood up and moved behind Chu Si. Immediately, they circulated their cultivation bases and placed their palms infused with spiritual energy on Chu Si's back, helping her refine the healing pill in her body. This power is? At this moment, Chu Si, who had just recovered from her injuries, suddenly felt a surge of energy that didn't belong to her. It was so powerful that it terrified her instantly appeared and began to help her refine the medicinal pill. Heh! Feeling the powerful energy, Chu Si immediately thought of the mysterious person from before. She was relieved for a moment. Anyway, she was already here. She owed more and more things, so it didn't matter anymore. Hold your head and refine all the medicinal pills. This way your body won't collapse. At this moment, Lin Rei said to Chu Si with a serious expression. Hearing this, her body trembled and she immediately became serious. Lin Rei could feel that Chu Si was using her spiritual energy to refine the remaining medicinal effects of the medicinal pill. At this moment, Yun Kai, who had been looking for Chu Si on a street not far from here, was asking around and finding her fiancé. By a freak combination of factors, she came to the place where Chu Si had fought. Fellow Taoist, may I ask if you've seen the young man named Chu Si? He's from the Danzong Sect. At this moment, she came to the place where Chu Si had fought and immediately found a middle-aged man with cultivation. She asked him in a pleading tone. Who are you to him? At this moment, the middle-aged man looked at the woman in front of him. His interest was piqued and he immediately asked. Fellow Taoist, I'm Chu Si's fiancé. He hasn't returned for a long time. I'm afraid something might have happened to him, so... At this point, Yun Kai's eyes subconsciously revealed a look of sadness. However, this trace of sadness flashed by and no one noticed it. Perhaps even Yun Kai herself didn't know. Oh, so that's how it is. Hearing Yun Kai's words, the middle-aged man nodded and replied, although I don't know if the Chu Si you speak of is the one. Not long ago, there was indeed a Chu Si from the Danzong sect who fought with Zhuoyang from the Tool sect here. However, Chu Si was no match for Zhuoyang and was defeated. Just as he was about to be killed, a mysterious person with an extremely powerful cultivation suddenly appeared and took the Chu Si you speak of away. What? Zhuoyang from the Tool sect? At this moment, Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Yun Kai was certain that the Chu Si he spoke of was the fiancé she was looking for. However, this matter involved the Tool Sect. She knew that this matter was serious. Moreover, at the moment when she heard that Chu Si was about to be killed, Yun Kai couldn't help but feel nervous. It was as if someone was strangling her throat and she couldn't breathe. However, after knowing that he was saved in the end, she felt relieved. However, regarding the mysterious person who saved her in the end, Yun Kai was momentarily stunned. "Fellow Taoist, do you know where they went?" "That way." Looking at a beauty like Yun Kai, no one could refuse. Immediately after, the middle-aged man pointed in the direction Lin Ray left and didn't say anything else. As for Yun Kai, after knowing the direction Chu Si left in, there was naturally no need for her to stay here any longer. She immediately bid farewell to the middle-aged man and left. Along the way, Yun Kai released her divine sense and began to investigate the surroundings. Every step she took covered more than 10 meters. This was naturally a piece of cake for a monarch god cultivator. "Chu Si, you bastard, you mustn't let anything happen to you. Why, you still owe me a lot of things. You mustn't let anything happen to you." At this moment, Yun Kai began to pray in her heart. At this moment, she probably didn't even know that she had already fallen in love with the bastard she was speaking of. Chapter 636. I know I was wrong. Looking at Yun Kai's appearance, Chu Si understood the principle that women shouldn't be offended. He immediately lowered his head and apologized. Although Yun Kai was angry at Chu Si's apology, she was more worried. Now that he was apologizing, she didn't know what to do and quickly turned her head away. As for Linley, who was standing by the side, looking at the two of them, he suddenly felt a headache coming on. I'm standing here with these young people." Although Lin Ray thought so, this was a matter between the two of them and it wasn't convenient for him to interfere. However, when he thought about how long he had been away, it was time for him to return. "That, Chu Si, come with me." At this moment Chu Si and Yun Kai, who were still sitting on the ground, were confused when they heard this voice. However, when Chu Si saw that the person who spoke was the person who saved him, his expression changed greatly. He immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to express his thanks. "Junior is Chu Si. It's all thanks to Senior that I was saved. Otherwise, I would have died." With that, he kowtowed heavily on the ground. However, this wasn't the end. Chu Si's voice sounded again. "Senior, thank you again. If it wasn't for your pill, I would still be heavily injured and unable to recover." Bam! Someone slammed his head on the ground. Linley didn't try to stop him. After all, he was right. "This third kowtow is to thank you, Senior. Thank you for helping me refine the medicinal effects in my body. Otherwise, I would have died by now." With a bang, he kowtowed 3 times to the ground. Linley revealed a smile. Linley's impression of Chu Si was growing more and more favorable. However, Chu Si's last sentence made Lin Ray frown. He said, "Since you know, why did you use the pill to forcefully raise your cultivation? Do you know that your body is on the verge of collapse? If you continue to use the pill, I'm afraid." At this point, Linley didn't continue. He knew that even if he didn't say it, Chu Si would know what he was going to say next. What happened to Chu Si? Why did you say that he would die?" What exactly happened? Just as the two were silent, Rosy Cloud, who had been listening to their conversation, came to stand in front of Linley. Her voice was extremely excited as she asked this question. "Yun Kai, stop messing around. This Senior." At that moment, Chu Si looked at his fiancée who had always been at odds with him. She was actually doing this for him. However, when he thought about the cultivation level of the person before him, he was a little afraid of Yun Kai's consolation. He quickly tried to dissuade her. "It's fine. However, before Chu Si could finish, she was interrupted by Linley. It's fine, I can understand her feelings. However, let me tell you bluntly, if you continue to consume pills, let alone your master, even a saint won't be able to do anything. In the end, they will be powerless to reverse the situation and resign themselves to fate. When the two of them heard Lin Ray's words, they were silent for a moment. Cloud had been listening for quite some time now, so she knew a bit. Consuming too many pills would cause immunity to the body and also leave behind pill toxins. After all, pills were somewhat poisonous. Therefore, she roughly knew Chu Si's situation. Haha, I already knew. Isn't it just returning to the river of time? It doesn't matter. It's already worth it to be able to live until now. At that moment, Chu Si's face was indescribably free and easy. However, when he saw Cloud, disappointment appeared on his face. It's just that I didn't marry Yun Kai. This is my regret. At that moment, Cloud didn't refute Chu Si's words. Instead, she blushed and turned to kneel in front of Lin Ray and begged, Senior, since you know about Chu Si's situation, then you should have the ability to cure him. Looking at Cloud, Lin Ray's face revealed a trace of splendor. Lin Ray smiled and nodded at her, correct? I do have a way to cure him. Not only that, I can also make him stronger. I can even pass on my ability to refine pills to him. At that moment, when they heard Lin Ray's words, whether it was Chu Si who was sitting on the ground or Cloud who was standing in front of Lin Ray, they both smiled emotionally. However, when they heard Lin Ray's next words, their smiles immediately froze. Seeing how emotional the two of them were, Lin Ray said, I can indeed save him. However, what obligation do I have to save him? Who is he to me? Senior, Cloud felt helpless at Lin Ray's actions. She wanted to refute, but she couldn't find any reason to do so. After all, Lin Ray was right. He had no obligation or responsibility to save Yun Kai. Forget it, Cloud. Since Senior isn't willing, then there's no need to say anything. After all, I'm on your side. No, you can't die. Since there's someone who can cure you, why not fight for it? Yun Kai, who was kneeling on the ground, retorted angrily when she heard Chu Si's depressing words. Chu Si was stunned when she heard Yun Kai's words because the Yun Kai in front of her was very different from before. Ha! Lin Ray smiled at the two of them. Since he had saved Chu Si, it would be a pity if he didn't take him for his own use. Sure enough, the question he wanted to ask had come. At that moment, Cloud angrily roared at Chu Si before turning to Lin Ray with a pleading expression. Senior, please tell me how you can save him. As long as you help, I'll give you anything. Boom. Chu Si's mind suddenly went blank. Immediately, the memories of him being together with Cloud flashed through his mind like a movie. Why has everything changed? Didn't she hate me before? Why has everything changed? Why is she willing to go to such lengths for me? Just what is going on? At this moment, Chu Si was extremely conflicted. Countless questions popped up in her mind at this moment. Lin Ray, who had been watching the two of them, smiled when he saw Cloud's questions. He said, It's not impossible to save him. As soon as these words came out, a look of excitement appeared on Cloudy's face. And then, a look of desire appeared on her face as she stared at Linley, eagerly awaiting his next words. Unless Chu Si joins my sect. Is that the only way I can spare no effort to save him? Not only that, I will also impart profound alchemy skills to you. I believe that with this sovereign-level alchemy skills, imparting them to you won't be wasted. What? Sovereign, how is that possible? At this moment, as soon as Linley's words left his mouth, two cries of surprise rang out. Haha, why? You don't believe me? Linley didn't even need to look to know that there was probably no one in the entire god realm who was an honorable alchemist. Therefore, Linley was able to guess their reactions. No, it's just that there is no sovereign-level alchemist in the divine world. I don't know if the two of them found it hard to accept the fact that the person in front of them said that he was a sovereign-level alchemist. After all, he wasn't a master-level alchemist or an emperor-level alchemist. Although they said that they believed him, they didn't believe him at all. Haha, forget it. It's normal that you don't believe me. After all, this sovereign has never verified it in the Alchemist Guild. However, it's still possible to cure your injuries. Although the two of them didn't believe him, it didn't matter. Anyway, the purpose of saving him this time was to take him in. As long as this was done, it didn't matter if he believed it or not. For a moment, the two of them had nothing to say and chose to remain silent. How about it? Join my sect and I will clear all the pill toxins in your body. Moreover, I can also help you improve your strength. You won't be so weak anymore. Once again, he threw out a branch to recruit Chu Si. He wasn't sure if Chu Si would become a member of his sect. At this moment, he was completely gambling in his heart. Hearing this request, Chu Si was in a dilemma. On one hand, it was the sect that raised him. On the other hand, it was his own life. He was very conflicted and didn't know how to choose. It wasn't only him. At this moment, Yun Kai was also conflicted. She also began to consider the matter for Chu Si. Lin Rei examined the two of them with his divine sense. For a moment, he sat down indifferently and drank a mouthful of wine. Then, he leisurely whistled. Time passed little by little. When he came out, it was still early in the morning. At this moment, it was already dusk. The setting sun just happened to be facing the alley. At this moment, a unique and beautiful scene appeared in Lin Rei's divine sense. Ha! A smile appeared on Linley's face as he raised his head to look at the setting sun. Although he couldn't see with his eyes, his divine sense could sense that the surrounding spiritual energy was beginning to thicken. I didn't expect the spirit energy to be so pure at this time. With that thought, he activated the devouring heavenly art. Suddenly, a devouring force appeared. In an instant, the surrounding spirit energy began to madly rush toward Lin Rei. At this moment, the changes in the spirit energy in the air were detected by the two people who were conflicted. Then, they looked at the direction of the spirit energy and saw that it finally landed on Lin Rei's body. At this moment, when they saw that all of this was caused by Lin Rei, the two of them suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with shock. However, because of this strange phenomenon, Yun Kai made the decision for Chu Si at this moment. Senior, Chu Si has agreed to join your sect. Please treat him as soon as possible. Yun Kai's words caused both Linley and Chu Si to come to their senses. Hearing these words, Linley's face was filled with smiles, while Chu Si, hearing these words, was surprised. Chapter 637. Yun Kai Chu Si didn't know what to do when he heard his fiancée, who was only in name, making the decision for him. Shut up and listen to me. Yun Kai seemed to know what Chu Si was going to say. Her tone was very different from her usual self, and her temperament became extremely domineering at this moment. I know what you're going to say, but you have to know that you're my fiancée. What will happen to me if you die? For some reason, Yun Kai became more and more agitated as she spoke. Chu Si and Lin Rei were both stunned. So, this decision is not only beneficial to you, but also to me. This matter is settled. Yun Kai looked at Lin Rei and pleaded, Senior, although I don't know what sect you're from, as long as you can cure him, I'll do anything. At this moment, Yun Kai's words completely shocked Chu Si. In the past, he always felt that Yun Kai looked down on him and was very unwilling to marry him. But now, he suddenly felt that these thoughts were just wishful thinking on his part. Good, well said. Looking at Yun Kai, Lin Rei seemed to see the shadow of his deceased wife in her. He nodded and agreed, You said it, I promise you. I don't need you to do anything. But, if possible, I don't mind you joining my sect. Of course, this is purely voluntary. As for Chu Si's problem, even if you don't ask me, I'll still treat him. I will treat him. After all, he is someone I have my eyes on. When Lin Rei said this, Yun Kai and Chu Si were both stunned. They didn't expect this answer. Seeing that the two of them were a little amused, he said, "All right, follow me. We've been out for too long." He said to the two of them, and walked towards the restaurant. At this moment, Yun Kai and Chu Si saw that Lin Rei was leaving and hurriedly followed him. And at this moment, when Chu Si and Yun Kai walked side by side, Chu Si boldly held Yun Kai's hand. Yun Kai wasn't used to this at first, but she didn't say anything after that. She even blushed a little. Hee. Lin Rei, who had extended his divine sense, was naturally able to observe the actions of the two people behind him. Lin Rei laughed it off. According to the memory in his mind, although it took a long time, he finally returned to the restaurant. As senior, when they arrived at the entrance of the restaurant, it was as if they had just checked in. The waiter at the entrance was there. However, what was different from before was that the moment the waiter saw Lin Rei, he hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Regarding this, Lin Rei was a little different. Looking at the person in front of him, Lin Rei had some doubts. However, because he released his divine sense, it was easy to detect the spirit chi emitted from the other party's body. Lin Rei was a little surprised. Following which, he probed deeper and found out that not only was Lin Rei astonished, but he was also astonished. Who would have thought that the waiter of a restaurant would actually be a God Emperor expert? Even if this matter was spread out, no one would believe it. "Senior, my master would like to invite you to a banquet. Do you have time?" "Of course, if you don't. Yes, please lead the way." You agree?" At this moment, the waiter was stunned when he heard Lin Rei's words. He didn't expect the other party to agree so easily. "Why wouldn't I agree? After all, I also want to see what kind of person he is to be able to make a God Emperor an errand boy." "What? God Emperor?" At this moment, Yun Kai and Chu Si, who were following behind Lin Rei, were shocked when they heard Lin Rei's words. The way they looked at the waiter changed. "Haha, that's right. If he hadn't called out to me like that, I probably wouldn't have checked his cultivation level. However, what I didn't expect was that the other clans treated the God Emperor as their trump card. I didn't expect to see an exception here. Therefore, I definitely have to make a trip there." Speaking of this, Lin Rei gestured to the waiter and prepared to leave. Rumble, however, things were often very unlucky. Just as Lin Rei was about to meet the master of the waiter, the world suddenly shook and a rumble came from afar. The moment this strange sound appeared, Lin Rei frowned. He immediately released all his consciousness and searched for the source of the rumble. At this moment, he wasn't the only one. All the cultivators in Heavenly Might City, who had come to explore the secret realm, also released their consciousness to search for the source of the rumble. Looks like I won't be able to go to your master's place soon." After a long while, his consciousness returned to his body. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly into a smile as he spoke to the waiter. The waiter had guessed that Lin Rei was eating the moment he felt the strange movement. However, when he heard Lin Rei's reply, he still felt a little troubled. Looking at the waiter, Lin Rei said, "All right, that's all for today. I still have urgent matters to attend to. Let's part ways here. However, if there's a chance, I really want to see what kind of family is so powerful to be able to do such a thing." After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for the waiter to reply. He turned around and grabbed Chu Si and Yun Kai, who were stunned by the strange movement of the world. With a teleportation, he disappeared. Lin Rei's movements were very sharp. Even the God Emperor expert who was the waiter didn't notice how Lin Rei disappeared. He was still talking a moment ago. The next moment, he disappeared without a trace. The waiter was extremely shocked, and at the same time, he sighed. Sigh, I originally wanted to cooperate with him. I didn't expect the secret realm to open at this time. Looks like we're not fated. At this moment, the waiter who was still standing at the door looked at the empty space in front of him and then walked towards the deepest part of the restaurant. At this moment, Shadow, Ghostly and the others in the restaurant didn't act on their own without Lin Ray's orders. As for going out to look, they didn't even go out to look. They weren't interested in the secret realm in the first place. At this moment, in the sky above the western city tower of Tianwei City, a seemingly illusory door appeared at this moment. Because the door was flickering, some incomplete runes appeared in front of everyone's eyes. At this moment, in a corner of the western city gate, Lin Ray, who had left the restaurant with Chu Si and Yun Kai, appeared here. Looking up at the sky, he felt the door in the air. For a moment, Lin Ray's face revealed a smile. I didn't expect this door to be a formation. But it's a little difficult. Although you've broken through to the Supreme Level Formation Master, you haven't done much research on Supreme Level formations. Although you've used it a few times, you're still very unfamiliar with it. At this moment, just as Lin Ray was deep in thought, a voice that Lin Ray wanted to cry and laugh at the same time, loving and hating at the same time, appeared. Suddenly, Lin Ray was stunned on the spot. At this moment, the person who spoke was none other than the little dragon who was sleeping in the Death Canyon. Are you okay? At this moment, standing in the system with a smile, looking up at the system's sky, he asked Lin Ray with a worried tone. For a long time, Lin Ray didn't make any sound. It was as if he was forbidden at this moment and couldn't speak. I know, you blame me for not fulfilling my promise. This matter is indeed my fault. However, I didn't expect that the reincarnation mirror couldn't find Jinling's whereabouts, so Alright, you bastard, I haven't seen you for so long, why do you always appear in such a way that surprises me? At that time, I thought you were dead. Really? At this moment, in the system, the little dragon thought that Lin Ray's silence was because of Jinling, so he quickly apologized. However, at this moment, before he could finish his words, Lin Ray's excited voice appeared, followed by a burst of scolding. Stunned, the little dragon in the system was stunned for a moment when he heard Lin Ray's words. His eyes were wet, and the words in his mouth became stuttering at this moment. Humph, you bastard! At this moment, Lin Ray recovered from the surprise of the little dragon's return. He really didn't expect the little dragon's voice just now. At that time, the system said that the little dragon would wake up during this period of time, but what he didn't expect was that the little dragon would appear at this time. Alas, okay, there will be time to catch up later. Now there is such a golden mountain in front of us, let's eat it first. When he was asleep, he thought that countless Lin Ray would quarrel with him because of Jinling after he woke up. However, the scene in his mind didn't happen at this moment, and he didn't expect Lin Ray to do this. However, the business in front of him was more important. Then, the little dragon didn't think much and said to him with a serious face. The formation in front of you can be said to be a venerable level formation. Of course, it can be said to be a saint level formation, so it's a great challenge for you. What do you mean? Seeing the little dragon's attitude towards eating, Lin Ray was stunned for a moment and then asked, What do you mean by venerable level and saint level? How do I explain it? It can be said that this formation was originally a venerable level formation, but later, for some reason, it was classified as a saint level formation. That's why I said venerable level and saint level. Of course, although the level has changed, it's still at the venerable level. Hearing this, Lin Ray understood. Then, he extended his divine sense and instantly arrived at the faintly discernible sound of the door in the air, and began to explore. At this moment, after the strange movement at the West City Gate, people kept appearing. At this moment there was a sea of people deep in the mountains. It was estimated that all the cultivators in Tianwei City were here. Be careful, this formation is not only offensive and defensive, but most importantly, it can attack divine sense. So be careful. At this moment, the little dragon was afraid that he would mess around with some of the necessary knowledge of this formation, so he hurriedly instructed him. Chapter 638. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? Just before the little dragon explained the function of the array, a terrifying devouring force appeared. Fortunately, Lin Rei's consciousness was strong enough to detect it in time. Otherwise, his consciousness on the door would have suffered. At this moment, when he heard Lin Rei's voice, he knew that Lin Rei must have encountered that kind of force. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an expression. It's fine. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. You'll get used to it. Besides, this array is still waiting for you to break it. If you can't break it, how are you going to get in? Don't you think so? The little dragon tirelessly talked to himself in the system. At this moment, Lin Rei's head was full of black lines and his face was gloomy to the extreme. After feeling the devouring force in the array, Lin Rei hurriedly withdrew all of his consciousness. Then, a strand of consciousness that was almost undetectable sneaked into the array. But what shocked Lin Rei was that the moment that strand of consciousness entered the array, it was mercilessly devoured by the devouring force. When he felt the horror of the devouring force, Lin Rei knew that this secret realm was definitely not that simple. At the same time, this matter gave him a warning of danger. "TSK, you only know how to talk. Don't you know how to be more practical? You're really not interesting enough." At this moment, when he heard the little dragon's words, Lin Rei directly responded with a roll of his eyes. But in his heart, he knew that if it wasn't for his reminder, perhaps he would have used a large amount of consciousness to sneak in and explore. "TSK, don't think I don't know you. Aren't you just trying to get something from me? Really?" In response to Lin Rei's words, the little dragon directly teased him. "But I heard that as long as you advance to the late stage of the God Emperor realm, the system will open up space for you. You must know that this thing can't be obtained casually. Space requires at least a high-level saint." Lin Rei chose to block the little dragon's long-winded words. Moreover, the system had already told him about this before. Moreover, he remembered that he had talked about this problem before. "Alright, let's not talk about it for now. Let's see what they do first. There are so many people here. As the saying goes, sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Let's see what they'll do." At this moment, Lin Rei hurriedly said to the little dragon when it stopped nagging. Then, he brought Chu Ci and Yun Kai to a place where there was no one. "Alright, let's sit down and watch slowly. There is a formation in front of us, but the level of the formation is too high. We won't be able to enter it for a while, so let's just watch from here." Seeing that the two people behind him were very reserved, Linley put on a friendly smile and said to the two of them. Afterwards, he took out 2 bottles of red wine that he couldn't bear to drink and handed them to the two of them with a smile on his face. "Come, drink the wine and watch slowly. How can there be no wine for such a good show? Besides, this wine is from my hometown, a faraway planet. It's absolutely authentic," Lin Rei said, seeing that the two of them were still reserved and unwilling to accept the wine. He forcefully stuffed the wine into their hands. This was the true genius. However, at this moment, Chu Ci and Yun Kai looked at the person in front of them and instantly regretted it. However, since they had already made such a decision, how could they regret it? Then, the two of them didn't think too much about it. They looked at Lin Rei and opened the wine bottles. "TSK, it smells so good?" In an instant, the moment the two of them opened the bottle, an extremely rich wine aroma wafted out from the bottle. The moment the two of them smelled the wine aroma, they, who usually didn't like to drink, quickly took a sip. Immediately, an astonished expression appeared on their faces. "Ha, how is it? I've already said that this wine of mine is very delicious. Besides, it seems it has been stored for more than 1,000 years, right? Sigh. Anyway, it's been a long time, and I don't remember the exact time. However, it's good that it tastes good." Lin Ray didn't need to guess to know their expressions because he had drunk it before and knew how it tasted. Thank you, Senior." "That's right," the two of them agreed with Lin Ray's words and nodded in agreement. Senior?" At this moment, Lin Ray, who was drinking, was stunned when he heard the two of them call him Senior. Then, he snapped back to reality and said, "Don't call me Senior in the future. Call me Young Master. That's what they all call me." Yes, Senior, we'll remember it." Seeing how obedient the two of them were, Lin Ray smiled and didn't look at them anymore. He turned around and released his divine sense into the flickering door again. "TSK. Formation. Haha, let me see how powerful you are." At this moment, Lin Ray's actions looked like he was drinking to others. However, other than Lin Ray himself, no one else knew that he was feeling very serious at this moment because after his divine sense entered the door, he felt that the formation in front of him was very tricky. This was the most difficult formation he had ever encountered. Because of this, Lin Ray's blood started to boil. Multitasking was like child's play for someone like Lin Ray. It couldn't be more simple. At this moment, Lin Ray sent a trace of his divine sense into the door to investigate. At the same time, he quickly calculated the location of the formation's eye in his mind. At the same time, he used his divine sense to investigate all the cultivators in the surroundings. Multitasking was very easy for him. He saw many people here. What surprised him was that even the Liao sisters from the Falling Star Pavilion, who claimed to be from the Devil Sect, were here. However, what surprised him the most was that he found a person here who made his heart ache. This person had a very deep relationship with him. This person was none other than Hong Lian, who had promised to protect him for the rest of his life in Tianxian continent. Later, because of that incident, they separated. However, when they met in the immortal realm, Lin Ray could feel that she seemed to have remembered something. At that time, Jean Ling had already left, and he didn't want her to be sad. In the end, they separated again. However, what shocked Lin Ray was that he saw the person who had sacrificed her life for him in the crowd again. Although he didn't know how she came to the immortal realm, her cultivation was now in the Divine Emperor realm. Lin Ray had to admit that her spiritual root and talent were indeed powerful. Seeing her, Lin Ray suddenly thought of Bai Qi and Yan Wei, who had appeared together with her. He originally wanted to bring them with him, but when he thought of their strength, he left them in the immortal realm. Furthermore, back then, Lin Li had already cut off all the connections that could allow him to level up with the two of them. However, because he was worried about them, he reconnected the two of them without their consent. Therefore, their cultivation should already be at the peak of the God-Emperor realm. Thinking of this, Lin Ray felt relieved about the Xuanzong sect. After all, he knew their fighting strength. Unless an ultimate god intervened, everyone below the ultimate god realm was as weak as ants. Of course, an early-stage ultimate god could still fight against them. Even if they couldn't defeat them, at least they wouldn't die. At this moment, Hong Lian, who was in the crowd in the distance, seemed to have felt that someone was probing her. She immediately released her divine consciousness to investigate that trace of divine consciousness. Why does it feel so familiar? At this moment, as soon as she came into contact with the divine consciousness that was probing her, a familiar feeling welled up in her heart. The divine consciousness that was probing her immediately stopped. Damn! At this moment, Lin Ray was shocked in a place where there was no one around. At this moment, sweat broke out on his forehead. Damn, what's going on? My divine consciousness is so strong, logically speaking, no one should be able to detect it. At this moment, if Hong Lian had not suddenly stopped, she would have known that the divine consciousness that was probing her was her former master, Lin Ray. Haha, are you stupid? In any case, you're the one who summoned her. Although you've cut off all the connections, she's still your subordinate. Therefore, no matter how strong you are or how strong your divine consciousness is, she can still detect you. At this moment, Xiaolong, who was in the system, was shocked. While explaining, he couldn't help but reply, "Speaking of which, it's really fate. It's already been 3 realms. I didn't expect the fate between the two of you to be so deep that you could even meet here." In response to the little dragon's boring words, Lin Ray hurriedly blocked his voice. However, the words he had just said were still lingering in his heart. Haha, is it fate? At this moment, Hong Lian felt the familiarity of that divine consciousness. For a moment, Hong Lian looked around in confusion. There was a trace of confusion in her deep feelings. This shouldn't be. This divine consciousness is very powerful. I shouldn't recognize it, but why do I feel a trace of familiarity? It's as if I've known it before. Hong Lian, who was full of confusion, looked around. After checking that there was no one around, she retracted her divine consciousness and gaze and focused all her attention on the door above the city tower. At this moment, Lin Ray, who could see Hong Lian's figure, saw her gaze at that moment and understood that she should have come to this secret realm at this moment. Of course, this was very obvious. After all, this secret realm came from the divine realm. It was rumored to be a saint's secret realm. Although it seemed like a legend to others, there was no harm in giving it a try. Moreover, even the cultivators of the 9th continent had come. One could imagine how grand this scene was. This formation. Right at this moment, Linley, who was searching through the formations while simultaneously making deductions in his mind, was shocked. How is this possible? What's guarding the door are 3 different formations. Just now, the image transmitted by the divine consciousness that entered the formation had been deduced in his mind. Only then did he realize that the so-called formation that the little dragon mentioned was simply nonsense. This was because he realized that this was not a simple formation, but a combination of 3 top-grade formations. It included a devouring formation, a strangling formation, and an illusory formation. Regarding this, Lin Ray felt a headache coming on. Not only that, but he also recognized one of the formations. That formation's strength was shocking, and it was called the God-devouring formation. The literal meaning was that even a god would have to make way for it. The essence of this God-devouring formation was known for devouring, which was the devouring power from before. Damn, little dragon, you King screwed me over again. Didn't you say that this was a formation? At this moment, Lin Ray, who had discovered the clues of the formation, entered the system with his divine consciousness and came in front of the little dragon and shouted angrily. The little dragon was stunned by Lin Ray's actions at this moment. However, he quickly came back to his senses and hurriedly explained, don't be so agitated. I'm just testing your achievements during this period of time. However, it seems that you've been doing well without me. Although your eyes were blinded by that bastard, you've grown a lot. At this point, the little dragon's expression suddenly changed. However, this is not enough. There are not only 3 formations in that door, but you're right about one thing. There is indeed a God-devouring formation, but there are only 8 formations. What? How is this possible? No. Impossible. At this moment, after hearing Lin Ray's words, a trace of disbelief appeared on Lin Ray's face as he growled at the little dragon. I'm not lying to you. There are indeed 8 formations in this formation that correspond to the 8 trigrams. However, what's different from the 8 trigrams is that each formation here possesses an extremely powerful force. There are 6 sage formations and 2 supremacy formations. The little dragon ignored Lin Ray's loss of composure and continued speaking. However, it's fortunate that the person who set up this secret realm clearly intended for people to enter. Otherwise, he wouldn't have set up the 2 supremacy formations at the life gate. At this moment, Lin Ray was slowly immersed in the little dragon's endless narration. For the sake of the 8 formations mentioned by the little dragon, Lin Ray could no longer care about it at this moment. Hee, I'm not afraid to tell you that this secret realm is indeed as the system said. It's a secret realm set up by a sage. It's called the Warrior Sage's Nightmare. After hearing the little dragon say the name of this secret realm, Lin Ray instantly believed in the matter of the formations. At the same time, he asked excitedly without any shame. Then, since you know, then, however, the little dragon seemed to know what Lin Ray wanted to say. Before Lin Ray could say anything, it hurriedly interrupted. Don't even think about it. This is your problem. At most, I'll give you a hint. I can't help you like I did before. Furthermore, I'm already standing in front of you as a deeply respected divine emperor. I'm no longer that little brat. After hearing this, Lin Ray was completely silent. Even if he wanted the little dragon to help him, he couldn't say it out loud. Alright, I know. But don't worry. I'll definitely use my own strength to enter this, Warrior Sage's Nightmare. Just watch. Chapter 639. Haha, alright. I'll see how much you've improved over the years. I'll say this first, I won't help you this time. You'll have to settle everything yourself. Hearing Lin Ray's words, the little dragon in the system chuckled and didn't say anything else. Alright, you'll see. I'll let you know that I didn't slack off while you were asleep. After speaking, he didn't say anything else, just like the little dragon. Instead, he started to deduce the God-engulfing formation. The little dragon had said that it was arranged according to the 8 trigrams, and the God-engulfing formation was the easiest one to enter. Linley spared no effort to deduce the formation. However, it was a peak honorable level formation after all. It wasn't difficult to deduce the formation of the formation. Moreover, the door above the city gate was just like before, flickering in and out of existence. However, the only difference was that some of the mysterious runes began to slowly appear at this moment, becoming a little clearer. Haha, not bad. I didn't expect Qianquan's sect to be here too. Isn't the item you obtained from the Tendo convention not enough? At this moment, in the house across from Linley's, a young man came to a table filled with people. Looking at them, a mocking smile appeared on his face. Haha, of course. After all, Qianquan's sect is still too weak. We have to cultivate as much as possible. Furthermore, the appearance of a rare treasure will only be known to those who are fated to know about it. Furthermore, we should use this opportunity to train ourselves. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, why not? The one who spoke was a young man with a handsome face. His cultivation was high and he had the aura of a superior being. He looked down on everyone else. Look, Qianquan's sect and Enigma Palace are here too. That's right. TSK looks like the secret territory this time is really big. Even the holy son of Enigma Palace, Ping Yun, would come out. I have to say, this is really a grand occasion. Moreover, the one who spoke just now was the holy son of Universe Sect, Jiuyang. That's right. Just these 2 people are enough. Yesterday in the East City, I even saw the holy son of the Divine Sect. At that moment, seeing the 2 of them arguing, the crowd started to discuss all sorts of things. Hearing what the crowd was discussing, Jiu Yang and Ping Yun, who were the main characters, revealed expressions of displeasure. TSK, a bunch of ants. At that moment, Ping Yun, who was in a bad mood, looked at the discussions around him and muttered to himself in a low, almost soundless voice. However, he didn't expect them to hear him. Most of the people who could come here were the elites of the various sections. If not, they were secluded. How could they not hear him? However, even though this world was a dog-eat-dog world where the strong were respected, sometimes one's background still mattered. With the Enigma Palace and Qianquan Sect here, even if they had heard those words, they wouldn't have dared to make a sound. After all, they didn't want the people behind them to suffer because of such a small matter. Humph! Everyone's face darkened when they saw Ping Yun. However, they didn't dare to say anything. They could only swallow their anger. At the end of the day, they were still too weak. Just like that, everyone snorted and left. At that moment, there weren't many people left in the house. At most, there were only a dozen people. Ping Yun and Jiuyang had a total of 8 people. As for the remaining 2, they sat at their own sides. They didn't look like they were together. However, the 2 of them acted as if they didn't hear what Ping Yun said. They drank their tea and stared at the mysterious door above the city gate. Jiuyang and Ping Yun also sensed the 2 youths. However, when they used their divine senses to check, they were shocked. Peak late-stage divine monarch? He's just one step away from breaking through to the God-Emperor realm. TSK, I wonder which sect nurtured him to have such a person. Peak late-stage divine monarch. Not bad. However, the 2 of them seem to be rogue cultivators. If we can win them over, at this moment, both of them had their own ulterior motives and were scheming in their hearts. Little did they know that Ping Yun had already been targeted. Qianquan Sect? Lin Rei wasn't far from Ping Yun. Hence, he could hear what Ping Yun said clearly. When he heard that Ping Yun was from Qianquan Sect, Lin Rei was instantly enraged. However, he didn't act like he did before. When he heard Qianquan Sect, he lost control. At that moment, Lin Rei's expression was extremely calm. He was so cold that the surrounding temperature started to drop. None of the people present had a high level of cultivation, so they could still sense the changes in their surroundings. However, because of the existence of the door, they only glanced at Linley's location and didn't pay any attention to him. Red Lotus, who was in the middle of the crowd, was no exception. Linley was startled, and then he retracted his aura. Huff! At this moment, Yun Kai and Chu Ci, who had been following beside him, felt their bodies go limp the instant they felt the enormous aura disappear. They almost fell to the ground. However, it was fortunate that their cultivation wasn't weak and they sensed it in time. Otherwise, the 2 of them would have already fallen to the ground. Alright, it's boring here. Let's go up and eat something while we wait. Regarding the actions of the 2, Linley's divine sense was very clear. He knew that he was the one who had caused it. Linley hurriedly changed the feeling of embarrassment in his heart and spoke to the 2 in a gentle tone. Yes, young master, following Linley, the 3 of them moved neither too fast nor too slow. They soon arrived at the Qianquan Sect's location. To Lin Rei, he wasn't going there to eat. He just wanted to collect some interest from Qianquan Sect. Chu Ci and Yun Kai didn't know what Lin Rei was thinking. They only knew to obey Lin Rei's orders. After all, their lives were at stake and they couldn't be careless. Yun Kai? Chu Ci? At this moment, at the other end of the street, 4 people had just arrived and were walking towards the city gate. Suddenly, one of them raised his head. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Chu Ci and Yun Kai following behind Linley with respectful looks on their faces. What? That's impossible. The 2 of them went out one after the other. Moreover, didn't we agree to come together? Why didn't they? At that moment, a middle-aged man who was walking with them heard what his companion said. He raised his head and looked ahead. Chu Ci and Chu Li appeared in his line of sight. For a moment, he stopped himself from saying anything else. It's them. Let's go and see what they're up to. I don't know why Master asked them to come along. At that moment, the youngest junior said sarcastically to the 3 people beside him. He took a step forward and walked towards the restaurant that Chu Ci and Yun Kai had entered. Sigh. Let's go. The 3 of them looked at their junior brother, sighed and followed him. It had to be said that there were strange occurrences every year, but this year there were even more strange occurrences. Meanwhile, a man, several young men, and an old man were on the street. When the young man saw Chu Si, his face was filled with venom. "Elder, let's go ahead and take a rest. The door to the secret realm hasn't opened yet." If Lin Rei was here, he would recognize the young man immediately. He was none other than Zhuoyang from Equipment Sect, who had fought with Chu Si previously. Oh! At that moment, the old man in the group fell into deep thought after hearing Zhuoyang's words. After a while, he looked up and said, "All right, let's go take a rest and recharge our energy. We'll wait for the secret realm to open." "Ha ha, that's great. Let's go." Hearing the old man's words, Zhuoyang smiled. Zhuoyang's face was full of smiles. He couldn't wait to walk towards the restaurant in front of him. At that moment, Lin Rei, Chu Si, and Yun Kai had already entered the restaurant. They didn't know that strange things were slowly approaching them. "Young master, please go ahead. I'll order something for you." After entering the restaurant, Yun Kai said to Lin Rei with a smile. At the same time, she didn't care whether Lin Rei agreed or not. She left as soon as she finished speaking. Seeing Yun Kai's actions, Chu Si explained to Lin Rei worriedly, I'm sorry, young master. Yun Kai is like this." "Sigh, alright. I'm not such a harsh person. I'm very relaxed when it comes to you guys. There's no need to be nervous. Also, I've already said that there's no need to be restrained. You can do whatever you want." Lin Rei was completely helpless when it came to the two of them. It wasn't just the two of them. Even the people from the Profound Sects and the Azura clan were extremely nervous when they saw him again. It was as if he could eat them alive. He had already emphasized this many times. It was fine on the first day, but it was only the second day. Everything would return to normal after the next day. Alright, stop talking about me. Let's go." Lin Rei shook his head helplessly when he saw Chu Si's current state. The second floor was filled with smoke. It looked as though it could turn into a battlefield at any moment. At this moment, Lin Rei brought Chu Si to the second floor. He found a corner where he could see the outside and sat down to wait for Yun Kai's arrival. At this moment, Lin Rei was expressionless. His divine sense was constantly observing Jiao Yang's actions. Peak late-stage God Monarch. Seems like Qianquan Sect has put in a lot of effort on this person. Just the clothes he's wearing are of the highest grade. Pring! Instantly, Lin Rei removed his divine sense from Jiao Yang's body and looked in front of him. Kai Yun, who had gone to settle some matters, had already arrived. "Young master, this is Jiao Yang's food. They said it's not bad. There's also food to go with wine. Have a taste and see if it's okay." At this moment, Yun Kai had a fawning smile on her face. Lin Rei didn't need to guess to know what she was trying to do. She wanted to remove the pill poison from Chu Si's body and help him raise his cultivation. It wouldn't be as empty as it was now. "Haha, little girl, not bad. You're starting to bribe people just by standing here." Looking at the clouds, Linley picked up the wine jug and took a sip. Then, he teased her. That. She didn't know how to continue Lin Rei's words and stuttered for a long time. "Young master, At this moment, Chu Si, who was watching the clouds from the side, hurriedly tried to explain on her behalf. However, before he could say anything, Linley's voice rang out in their ears. "That's enough, lass. I know you want me to remove the pill poison from your fiancé. However, you don't need to be so impatient. Besides, I have to help him condense his cultivation first." At this point, Lin Rei revealed a pensive expression. Not long after, Lin Rei seemed to have thought of something and said, "However, there's another method. It can refine the pill poison in your body and also help you condense your cultivation. If the results are good, it can even help you break through to the Emperor God level." When he said that, Lin Rei didn't seem to be able to lower his voice. Zhu Yang, Ping Yun, and the Danzong Sect disciples who had just arrived on the second floor heard him. In an instant, Yun Kai, including Chu Ci, disappeared. The entire second floor fell silent. Everyone looked at Lin Rei. Some of their faces were filled with disbelief, while others were shocked. However, Chu Ci's face was filled with unwavering determination. "Young master, can you really let me?" At this moment, Chu Ci's tone was urgent as she asked Lin Rei urgently. "That's right." Without waiting for Chu Ci to finish, Lin Rei said, "Of course, although this method is good, you should know that this method has risk. Moreover, the risks are extremely great. Moreover, the process is extremely painful. This kind of pain isn't something that ordinary people can endure. Of course, there's another method. This method requires time. Moreover, this method is a conservative treatment. There's no danger." At this point, Lin Rei didn't say anything else. At this moment, there was a multiple-choice question in front of them. If Lin Rei were him, he would definitely choose the first method. After all, he was constantly running against time. However, Chu Ci was different. For a moment, Chu Ci fell silent and pondered. Yun Kai, who was beside her, fell silent the moment she heard this multiple-choice question. At this moment, Zhuoyang of the Tool Sect brought his fellow disciples who had come to participate in the secret realm to the second floor. "Oh, isn't this Chu Ci? Oh, right, I still haven't thanked you for the pill you gave me this morning." A sharp and uncomfortable voice rang out at this moment. Chu Ci's expression immediately changed when she heard this voice. She hurriedly opened her eyes and looked in the direction of the voice. "Continue thinking about what I just said to you. Before I'm done with this matter, don't open your eyes. However, if you still haven't given me a satisfactory answer after I'm done with this matter, then I'll give you an experience that you'll never forget for the rest of your life." Chapter 640. Chu Ci and Yun Kai were stunned when they heard Lin Rei's words. Their faces revealed a trace of doubt, but they obeyed his order and closed their eyes again to reconsider the previous problem. "Remember, if the two of you can't think calmly in this environment, then there's no need for me to accompany the two of you." Lin Rei's voice once again entered their ears. Immediately, their bodies trembled and they entered a meditative state. Ha ha! The moment the two of them entered a meditative state, the surrounding aura began to quiet down. Sensing the change in the aura around the two of them, a smile appeared on their faces, and a trace of relief appeared on their faces. That's right. Although the two of them are a little weak, especially the one called Chu something, his cultivation is so weak that it's practically trash. However, the fact that the two of them entered a meditative state at this time means that their Tao heart is firm. Of course, this is only my opinion. At this moment, the little dragon's voice suddenly sounded. Lin Rei smiled for a moment. "Haha, that's right. To be able to face these people in this environment, especially those who wanted to kill him, to be able to do this is really not easy." Lin Rei couldn't deny the little dragon's words, but he still felt a little helpless about their cultivation. But that Chu Ci," Lin Rei added helplessly when he heard that the little dragon hadn't even called out the other person's full name and was already making comments here and there. Yes, Chu Ci, his cultivation foundation is too weak, especially the pill poison in his body. Although the pill poison will affect his body again, but it can still be considered a huge treasure. If used properly, it could very well create a peak divine emperor existence for you. Haha, you're a thief. You're absolutely right. TSK, speaking of which, it's strange. I didn't expect the pill poison in his body to be so huge. However, what surprised me even more is that such a huge amount of pill poison didn't kill him. Of course, thank you isn't the main point. The most important thing is that, in the end, such a person still benefited me. Hee hee. Upon hearing Lin Rei's words, The little dragon in the system smiled knowingly. I knew you wouldn't be so stupid, but are you sure you want to throw him into the heaven and earth Huayu to refine him? You have to know that you are someone who possesses the illusory spirit blood fire. As for his body, are you sure he can withstand the refinement of the illusory spirit blood fire? After hearing this, Lin Rei went silent. Although he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that the little dragon was right. After all, his illusory spirit blood fire was not bad at refining pills. After all, even though they had spirit, they weren't like humans. But if he were to use a living person to refine pills, he would be able to completely refine all of the pill toxins in Chu Si's body and help him stabilize his foundation. Linley was a bit worried about this. After all, this would be his first time. Alright, don't think about it anymore. At most, I'll reluctantly help you when the time comes. You have more important things to do now. How could the little dragon not know about Lin Rei's worries? However, he couldn't help but worry about the situation outside. Then, the little dragon hurriedly said something to him and automatically cut off the communication. Lin Rei didn't react to the little dragon's words for a moment. He was stunned on the spot and his heart was filled with doubts. However, the little dragon had already cut off the communication. He couldn't enter the system at this time to ask for clarification. Then, Lin Rei gave up thinking. After all, the little dragon had already said that it would help. He was very sure of the little dragon's strength. Then, Lin Rei regained consciousness. He raised his head and used his divine sense to check on Zhuoyang and the others who had just come upstairs. Middle stage God Emperor? No wonder they are so arrogant. At this time, he used his divine sense to check on the strength of Zhuoyang and the others. In an instant, everyone present was in his mind. Other than 2 Emperor gods, the rest were all Sir gods. Of course, there were also those below Sir gods. Lin Rei didn't care about these people at all. Other than the old man behind Zhuoyang, who was an Emperor god, there was another person who shocked Lin Rei. It was the young man who was sitting in the other corner. Lin Rei was also puzzled about this. When he checked previously, he clearly felt that the other party was a Sir god. However, he had now become an Emperor god. Lin Rei became vigilant. As the saying goes, if the enemy doesn't move, I won't move. If the enemy moves, I'll strike first. As for the Emperor god, Lin Rei didn't know what kind of attitude the other party would have when he made a move. Therefore, he had to be careful. Although he was confident in his own strength, in the great thousand world, where there were many experts in the divine realm, it was always right to be careful. After finishing his inspection of everyone's strength, Linley immediately stood up from his seat. With a casual wave of his hand, he set up a protective formation around Chu Si and Yun Kai. Only now did Linley feel at ease. After all, the movements he was about to make might be rather large, and he was afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. Kid, if you want to find trouble, I advise you not to. With me here, you? Stay aside, and don't try to trick me. Otherwise, I won't care if you are the 9th Continent's equipment refining sect. Of course, you can choose not to believe me, but when the time comes, you will have to pay the price in blood. At this moment, Linley raised his head. Although he couldn't see with his sharp eyes, his divine sense was extremely clear. He raised his head to look at Zhuoyang's group, his voice filled with a hint of coldness. At this moment, the surrounding temperature began to drop, finally reaching the freezing point. The drop in the surrounding temperature attracted the attention of everyone in the surroundings. Even the cultivators on the street felt cold. At this moment, they all felt a chill run down their spines. Their gazes were filled with astonishment as they turned to look at Linley. At this moment, no one dared to look at the blind young man. There were only a few people in the divine realm who could show such a cold expression. At this moment, the old man behind Zhuoyang looked at Lin Rei with a trace of worry in his eyes. Who are you? Are you Chu Si's father or his brother? I'm talking to him. Who are you to talk to? Did your father teach you etiquette? Do you have any manners? You. At this moment, perhaps because Zhuoyang had the support of a divine emperor elder, his words had completely ignited the anger in Lin Rei's heart. Oh? Manners? That kind of thing doesn't work on me. Furthermore, it's not up to you to judge whether I have any manners or not. Looking at Zhuoyang, Lin Rei's face was extremely dark. It was to the point where he could go berserk at any time. Or, have you forgotten the lesson I taught you before now that you have the support of a divine emperor? This person is actually. When those words were spoken, the people standing behind Zhuoyang were shocked. Their faces were filled with astonishment. It wasn't just the old man. Everyone present was shocked as they looked at the old man. You? At this moment, Zhuoyang didn't realize that the old man behind him had a serious look on his face. When he heard Lin Rei's words, he was speechless and didn't know what to say. Haha, that's enough. I won't lower myself to your level today. With me around, no one can touch Chu Si and Chu Si. Lin Rei looked at Zhuoyang and the others with disdain. Furthermore, he wasn't here for them. Instead, he was here for Ping Yun and the others from the Qiankuan sect. After he finished speaking, Lin Rei turned around and walked towards Ping Yun. However, the moment Lin Rei turned around, Zhuoyang's face turned extremely dark and he shouted coldly. Humph, bastard! How dare you look down on the equipment refining sect? Do you really think you're a big shot? Let me tell you, the elders of the equipment refining sect are here today. Do you think that's enough, Zhuoyang? No one will treat you as a mute if you don't speak. At this moment, the old man behind Zhuoyang immediately stopped him. His face turned even uglier when he heard Zhuoyang's words. At this moment, the old man only wanted to leave as soon as possible. It had been a long time since he had last seen Lin Rei's cold aura. He was afraid, be it in terms of his aura or the bottom of his heart. However, even though he wanted to stop Zhuoyang, it was too late. At this moment, after hearing Zhuoyang's repeated provocations, Lin Rei's anger had been completely ignited. He turned around with a calm look on his face. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing an evil look. At this moment, if Ying and the others were here, they would know that Lin Rei's expression meant that he was extremely angry. In this world, there was only one way to make him so angry, and that was to kill. Haha, equipment refining sect? I don't care about it at all. Didn't you say that you have the protection of the Emperor God? Didn't you say that you have the protection of the equipment refining sect? Very well. Today, this exalted will let you know just how weak your so-called protection is. Just how small your so-called protection is. What, at this moment, Linley's words had stunned everyone present. However, just as everyone subconsciously refused to believe him, Linley, who had been standing there with a calm smile on his face, suddenly disappeared into thin air. He had disappeared without any warning. Impossible? At this moment, the person standing behind Zhuoyang, upon seeing this, a look of shock appeared on his face. He immediately spread out his divine sense to scan the surrounding area, but unfortunately, he couldn't find any trace of Linley within this area. Today I will let you teach me. The protection you speak of is so useless. At this moment, Lin Rei's voice rang out in the quiet second floor. Immediately, everyone turned their gazes to see that Lin Rei had appeared behind the old man. One of his hands was already choking the old man's neck. At this moment, the old man whose neck was being choked by Lin Rei had a look of horror and fear on his face. His forehead was covered in cold sweat and his body started to tremble. That wasn't all. At this moment, his face was so pale that it made people doubt their lives. At this moment, no one had expected Lin Rei's actions. At this moment, there was only one thing that was bothering them. That was, how did this blind young man get behind the old man? Even the other Emperor God on the second floor, other than Lin Rei, had the same question in their hearts. The young Emperor God sitting in the corner had a grave expression on his face. This person is not simple. Even I couldn't see his actions clearly. TSK, why hasn't his name been heard in the entire God world? This person is not simple. To think that he could silently choke the Emperor God. It seems like there is another person in the God world who can't be seen. I wonder if he has a sect. It would be great if he could join our Qianquan sect. At this moment, everyone on the second floor had their own thoughts. However, to Lin Rei, he didn't care at all. The only thing he cared about was the lives of everyone in the Qianquan sect. Zhuiyang was so scared that he couldn't speak. His body was trembling non-stop and his face was as pale as a sheet. At this moment, he knew what it felt like to regret. However, by the time someone felt regret, it was already too late. Looking at everyone's expressions, Lin Rei had a mocking look on his face as he said to the old man and Zhuiyang, "Is this your dignity? Is this the pride of your sex? Emperor God? So what if you're an Emperor God? You have the title of an Emperor God but you don't have the strength." When Lin Rei made his move, he could sense that the old man had the title of an Emperor God but he didn't have the strength to do so. His cultivation base was fluctuating. With one look, he could tell that this was a result of consuming large amounts of pills for a long period of time. Therefore, after sensing this, Lin Rei made his move with such certainty. If that Emperor God was truly an Emperor God, even if it wasn't a tough battle, it would take some time. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard by everyone on the second floor. What? This? At the moment when the sound of bones breaking could be heard, everyone was in disbelief. How could they possibly turn to look in the direction of the equipment sect? What they saw was that the old man's neck had already gone limp. His eyes were the same as everyone else's, filled with disbelief. However, the only difference was that the old man's life force was slowly dissipating. Equipment sect, you've pissed me off. Be careful that I don't destroy your equipment sect. Looking at the old man, Linley said angrily. Then, he casually tossed the old man aside like a dead dog and no longer paid any attention to him. Then, Lin Rei, who was filled with killing intent, walked step by step toward Zhuiyang, who had fallen to the ground out of fear. "Humph, I told you to be quiet, but you didn't listen. You insisted on making me do it. Tell me, aren't you cheap?" Slap! At this moment, looking at Zhuiyang, Lin Rei said helplessly. As soon as he finished speaking, a slap landed on his face. Sigh. What a pity. Originally, I was a little interested in the 9th continent and wanted to go there. Now it seems that the 9th continent is just like this. An elder of a sect is a person who only knows how to consume pills. You can imagine what the entire equipment sect is like. Lin Rei, who was talking to himself, came to Zhuiyang's side and looked down at him. His eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. Chapter 641. At this moment, Zhuiyang, who was lying on the ground, looked horrified. The place where Lin Rei had slapped him was now red and swollen, with 5 fingers clearly imprinted on it. Since you've done it, you should have thought of all the consequences in advance. So die. Looking at Zhuiyang, Lin Rei's face was as calm as still water, without the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. After speaking, Lin Rei's left hand cut Zhuiyang's neck. Poochie! At this moment there was a cut on Zhuiyang's neck, and blood kept gushing out from it like a weak fountain, which was instantly horrifying. In this regard, Lin Rei had no intention of stopping. After dealing with Zhuiyang, Lin Rei immediately went to the other people of the equipment refining sect and killed them effortlessly. Lin Rei's actions at this moment were so decisive that everyone around was stunned. At the same time, a thought involuntarily appeared in everyone's mind at this moment. It was better to be friends than enemies with this person in front of them. Even if they couldn't be friends, at least it wouldn't be difficult to be enemies with him. Oh, the equipment refining sect is just SOSO. After everything that had happened last night, Lin Rei returned to his seat and sat down. Then, with a wave of his hand, he broke the formation around Chu Xi and Zhuo Yang and woke them up with his divine sense. How about it? Have you thought about the question I asked you before? Do you want the most conservative or the other risky method? For Lin Rei, he didn't like trouble very much. After all, there were still people in front of him who hadn't been dealt with yet. Yes, I've thought about it. Chu Xi, who was awake at this time, heard Lin Rei's question and said firmly without any hesitation, I choose the latter. I want to try the risky method. Why? Lin Rei couldn't help but reveal a gratified smile when he heard Chu Xi's answer. However, this smile disappeared as quickly as a shooting star. Apart from Lin Rei himself, no one else noticed it. Because although there is danger, although I am very afraid, I don't know why, but in my heart, there is always a voice telling me to choose the latter, to choose the method that is too risky. Of course, my heart is the most accurate. Following my heart, I don't think it is wrong. At this moment, Chu Xi's gaze was very resolute. Even Cloud, who had awakened by the system, couldn't help but freeze on the spot when she saw Chu Xi's expression. But when she thought of the overly risky method, Yun Kai hurriedly opened her mouth to stop him. Chu Xi, do you know that the risk is too great? Although I don't know how dangerous the method young master is using is, since young master said so, it means that it's not simple. Since there's a safe method, why did you? All right, I have decided on this matter. I am very certain of this matter. It can be said that in all these years, this is the most resolute decision I have ever made. Therefore, please respect my decision and don't oppose it. Chu Xi knew what Yun Kai was going to say and hurriedly stopped her. However, his words at this moment left Yun Kai with no reason to refute. Haha, good, I am very satisfied with your answer. At this moment, Lin Rei revealed a smile as he listened to the two's conversation. Since you have already decided, then it is settled. Once the matter here is settled, I will help you remove the pill poison in your body. Of course, there is definitely a risk, but I guarantee that it will be minimized and your safety will be guaranteed. With that, Lin Rei glanced at Yun Kai and said, If I can't guarantee your safety, I'm afraid that your wife will kill me. Ha. Everyone in the room heard Lin Li's words, including their junior apprentice brothers. Naturally, Yun Kai heard it as well. However, regarding this, Yun Kai didn't say anything. However, she didn't refute. Instead, a faint blush appeared on her face. However, when Chu Xi heard Lin Rei's words, he smiled foolishly in embarrassment. Yun Kai rolled her eyes at him when she heard this. This scene fell into the eyes of the Danzong Sect disciples at the staircase. For a moment they were all stunned on the spot. Their emotions were filled with shock. Senior brother, am I seeing things? Is this our senior sister? Doesn't she usually hate senior brother Chu the most? Why is she standing here now? What's going on? I don't know either. Previously, the two of them were in that state. It has only been a day since we last met and the two of them have changed so quickly. At this moment, the few Danzong Sect disciples were looking at the situation between Chu Xi and Yun Kai. They also saw that Lin Rei's words didn't anger Yun Kai. Instead, she revealed a trace of shyness. They all thought that they were seeing things. TSK, what's there to guess? Can't we just go up and ask? At this moment, one of them looked at his companions and his eyes were filled with disdain. He then walked towards Lin Li. The young man's actions attracted the attention of everyone present, including Chu Xi and Yun Kai. Junior brother. This young man was very familiar with Chu Xi and Yun Kai because he was their youngest junior brother in the Danzong Sect. The moment they saw him again, Chu Xi and Yun Kai were stunned. Senior brother Chu, Why are the two of you here? Have you forgotten why Master sent us here? With the two of you here, junior brother, listen to me. At that moment, after hearing what their little junior brother said, Chu Si hurriedly said, Junior brother, we, the two of us, have already left the What? This, the moment Chu Si's words left his mouth. His junior brother, Fang Zhou, and the other members of the Pill sect were all stunned. They could not help but cry out in surprise because they were extremely shocked. The person who had said those words was actually their cowardly senior brother, who had used medicinal pills to increase his strength in order to obtain his fiancée's approval. They couldn't believe it because this was the first time they had seen Chu Si like this since they met him. Junior brothers, this is my decision, he said to them. Then, he turned around and looked at Yun Kai. He said hesitantly, Yun Kai, I don't know if this decision is fair to you. If you, alright. You don't have to say any more, I understand. Since you've already made this decision, I will follow you. As for my father, when you're strong enough and we're married, we can go back and tell him. As for the rest, I'll listen to you. When Yun Kai heard Chu Si's words, she knew what he was going to say next. She quickly stopped him and said what was in her heart. However, after saying this, Yun Kai's face became very red, like a ripe tomato. It was very beautiful. At this moment Fang Zhou, who was standing in front of them, had a trace of anger on his face when he heard Chu Si and Yun Kai's words. The two of you actually dared to say such disgraceful words. Chu Si, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten how Master imparted his knowledge of pill refinement to you? Have you forgotten that Master was willing to step down from his position as Sect Master so that a piece of trash like you could become his direct disciple? Have you forgotten? Shut up. When Lin Rei heard what Fang Zhou said, he immediately became nervous. He was afraid that Fang Zhou's words would change Chu Si's mind. After all, the power of kinship was the easiest thing to guess. He couldn't guarantee it. This matter is settled. Chu Si has become this sovereign's person. From now on, he has nothing to do with the Danzong sect. Oh no, he has nothing to do with the entire God realm. Looking at Fang Zhou, Lin Rei couldn't help but release a trace of killing intent. He said to Fang Zhou, and you, little child, today, this sovereign will let you go for the time being since you are Chu Si's junior brother. If you continue to pester me, then just like the tool refining sect, you will fall into a deep sleep. By this place. After saying this, Lin Rei completely released his killing intent. At this level, he could control his killing intent as he wished. The enormous killing intent was like a huge mountain, suppressing all the people from the Danzong sect. PFFF, at this moment, a mouthful of blood spurted out from the mouths of the people from the Danzong sect. Their faces instantly paled, and their bodies couldn't withstand the enormous killing intent. They directly fell to the ground. Young master, at this moment. At the side, Chu Si's heart softened when she saw her junior brothers, who were on bad terms with each other in the past. She immediately pleaded with Lin Rei. Haha, alright. I said before that I won't do anything to them. So, don't worry. This time, I'm just teaching them a lesson. I won't do anything to them. He knew what Chu Si wanted to say. And then, Linley spoke with a smile on his face. These words were like a calming pill, causing Chu Si's frantic heart to calm down. Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. At this moment, Chu Si hurriedly thanked Lin Rei with a smile on her face. Alright, this matter is settled. I still have things to do today. Sit here and wait. In any case, it will take some time for that door to open. At this moment, Lin Rei, who had been calculating the array formation in his mind, said to Chu Si and Chu Si. Then, he stood up and walked towards Ping Yun. As for the murderous aura that suppressed the Danzong sect disciples, it dissipated the moment Lin Rei stood up. When Chu Si heard Lin Rei's words, she nodded and sat down. As for her junior brothers, she didn't care about them anymore. Haha, Qiankuan sect. At this moment, the small fries from before had all been dealt with. At this moment, Lin Rei turned to look at Ping Yun from Qiankuan sect. Ping Yun, who had been sitting at the side and watching the show, was confused when he heard the voice behind him. However, he had heard this voice too many times today. Then, he hurriedly turned around and looked at Lin Rei, who was walking towards him. May I know what's the matter? Moreover, I don't think we know each other. At this moment, as the Xingzi of Qiankuan sect and a Sir God, he could naturally feel the immense murderous aura from Lin Rei. Haha, we don't know each other. However, I have a deep impression of Qiankuan sect. This means that Qiankuan sect has a blood feud with me. A blood feud that will never end until one of us is dead. As soon as Linley's words left his mouth, the remaining people all turned to look at Linley, puzzlement in their eyes. Ping Yun was the same. After hearing Lin Rei's words, many questions popped up in his mind. He didn't understand what a blood feud was, and he didn't know why Qiankuan sect would have a blood feud with this person in front of him. Moreover, it was a blood feud that would never end until one of them was dead. As the Xingzi of Qiankuan sect, he was extremely clear about what the sect had done in the past. Furthermore, every time the sect did something, it would be recorded in the records of the sect. However, he had never seen such a blood feud before. Fellow Taoist, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Why would my cosmic sect have a grudge against you? Moreover, it's a blood feud. Even if you want to kill me, you should at least let me know the reason before I die. You should at least tell me what happened. Hearing Ping Yun's words, Linley chuckled out loud. A maniacal smile appeared on his face. The enmity I'm talking about is with the Qiankuan sect. And the name Qiankuan sect means that I have a huge enmity with them. Since you guys are from Qiankuan sect, then you must have a blood feud with me. Therefore, I don't need any other reason. Just because you guys are from Qiankuan sect, I will not let you guys off. The moment these words came out, everyone was speechless. So it was because of Qiankuan sect? Are you kidding me? Is my Qiankuan sect something a rogue cultivator like you can blaspheme? At this point, Ping Yun finally understood what was going on. His face was filled with anger as he spoke. In this moment, the full power of a divine lord was unleashed. His killing intent was unleashed, and it began to clash against Linley's killing intent. Die. Remember to choose a better sect in your next life. Don't ever enter Qiankuan sect again. Otherwise, as long as the name of Qiankuan sect is mentioned, I will destroy it. Ping Yun's actions made Lin Rei even more furious. Shut up. Hearing the words of the person in front of him, the anger on Ping Yun's face reached its peak. You guys really don't know what's good for you. My Qiankuan sect is not something you can blaspheme. With that, Ping Yun was completely enraged. Instantly, a 3-foot-long sword appeared in his hand. The sword light shot out in all directions, filled with killing intent. At this point, the killing intent of the two of them had already alerted everyone who was waiting for the door to open. This aura. Hong Lian, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, couldn't help but think of a person when she felt the aura. Young master. Chapter 642. Sensing the familiar killing intent, she blurted out the words, young master. Tears welled up in her eyes as memories that she had long sealed away surfaced in her mind. The scenes between her and Linley in the profound sky continent caused Red Lotus body to tremble. Lin Rei, who was on the second floor of the restaurant, seemed to have forgotten about Hong Lian. He didn't expect Hong Lian to still remember his killing intent after so many years. Whoosh! Hong Lian, who was standing on the street, sensed the familiar killing intent. She was certain that this was the person she was thinking of. She released her cultivation and disappeared from the spot. On the second floor of the restaurant, the atmosphere was tense. Smoke filled the air and a battle was about to break out. Young master. Just as Linley was about to make his move, a voice he didn't want to hear rang out. Linley, who had already raised his hand to fight, was stopped abruptly by this shout. Young master, is that you? At this moment, that familiar voice rang out once more. For a moment, Linley didn't know what to do. However, Linley's heart turned cold in the face of this person from the Qiankuan sect. He didn't turn his head, nor did he turn around. After that, the hand that was stopped suddenly moved. It brought with it a huge amount of energy as it shot towards Ping Yun. It doesn't matter who comes today. Everyone from the Qiankuan sect will die today. As he spoke, Linley's body suddenly disappeared. His speed was as fast as lightning, and the entire floor was occupied by the two of them. You want to use any of them? Although I don't know how strong you are, I'm afraid this isn't enough. Ping Yun scanned his surroundings. Even when he released his divine sense, he couldn't sense the mysterious person in front of him. However, even so, Ping Yun's face was still as calm as ever, without the slightest trace of fear. Apart from the shock in his eyes just now, he immediately recovered his composure when he saw the ripples of emotion in his eyes. At that moment, Lin Rei, who was rushing towards Ping Yun, felt his hair stand on end when he heard the other party's words. This was the first time he felt this way. What's going on? Why do I feel like something is appearing around me? That shouldn't be the case. Although he was confused, since he had already made his move, there was no way he would stop. Ignoring the fear in his heart, he immediately activated his cultivation and rushed towards Ping Yun. Freeze domain, open! Suddenly, Ping Yun's voice rang out. Lin Rei's face revealed a trace of shock when he heard it. Domain. He knew about domains. He had experienced them when he first came to the God Realm and when he was in the Divine Sect. However, it seemed to be a similar domain back then. Although Lin Rei was shocked, since he knew how to break it, there was nothing to be nervous about. However, for the person in front of him to be able to cultivate a domain, he could be considered a prodigy. Since you're so confident in your domain, I'm sorry, but I really don't care. He felt a little better. The surrounding temperature dropped rapidly. Even the wine on the table froze the moment the chill appeared. Freezing power. Not bad. However, compared to my illusory spirit blood fire, it's still a far cry. In an instant, the illusory spirit blood fire appeared and enveloped Ping Yun. At that moment, the extremely cold space started to warm up the moment the illusory spirit blood fire appeared. At that moment, Lin Rei was not in a hurry to kill Ping Yun. Looking at the few people beside Ping Yun, Lin Rei released his killing intent. His body, which had stopped moving, suddenly moved. His speed was so fast that it was as if he had disappeared from everyone's sight. No one knew where Lin Rei was. When Lin Rei appeared again, he was already behind one of the disciples of Qiankuan. The tip of the chaotic dragon spear was already at the disciple's back. As long as he exerted a little force, that disciple would die on the spot. At that moment, the people on the second floor sensed Lin Rei's presence and turned around. When Ping Yun saw Lin Rei's actions, his face was filled with anger. Me? I'm just taking back some interest. The Qiankuan sect of the immortal world was created by you guys. Although the Qiankuan sect of the immortal world has been destroyed, the culprit is your sect. Therefore, I'm letting you guys off easy by letting you guys live for so long. Poochie. The sound of flesh being pierced rang out. only to see that the chest of the Qianquan sect disciple, that Linley's spear was pierced through. Fresh blood flowed down the tip of the spear, forming a blood scab. Are you really not afraid of death? Although I don't know your strength, do you think you can fight against an entire sect? At that moment, his face was filled with anger. After seeing his junior brother being pierced by the spear, he was truly enraged. Heh! Sect? Your Qianquan sect? Do you really think that I'm afraid? I'm not afraid to tell you that if I didn't say that I would do it myself, the Qianquan sect you speak of would be in ruins by now. Lin Rei didn't show any mercy to Ping Yun. Furthermore, he didn't think that he was lying. If he let Xie Feng do it herself, it would really become what he said. When Ping Yun heard Lin Rei's words, he couldn't help but curse. However, he didn't say anything in the end. Instead, the killing intent on his body grew thicker. This is the first one. Let the killing continue then. Looking at Ping Yun, Lin Rei revealed a cruel smile. Then, his body disappeared again. At that moment Ping Yun panicked. Knowing that Lin Rei was going to do something, he immediately shouted to the remaining junior brothers. Junior brothers, hurry up and hide. Don't let that bastard take advantage of you. Poochie. Another sound that made his heart tremble rang out. Immediately, he knew that it was already too late. Following that, another junior brother who came with him died. His body went limp and he powerlessly fell to the ground. At this moment, the surrounding crowd was completely stunned. To put it bluntly, this method of killing was equivalent to killing someone. To put it mildly, this was akin to torturing Ping Yun. To kill a fellow sect member in front of the saint child of the Qianquan sect was something that made him feel proud and helpless at the same time. Poochie. At that moment, Lin Rei didn't stop. 2 more people fell to the ground. Ping Yun's face was extremely ugly. As for the Qianquan disciples on the second floor, aside from Ping Yun, all of them were wiped out by Linley one by one. Your turn. In the midst of all this, Linley's figure was revealed. His body was surrounded by the blood-like illusory spirit bloodfire. At this moment, he looked like a bloody corpse that had crawled out from the ground, causing one's heart to turn cold. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but think of the word devil. To the current Linley, the word devil was simply too fitting. At this moment, Ping Yun's heart was filled with a trace of fear. Before he met Linley, he should have been very confident in his frozen domain. Even in the past, there had been people who had tried to use it to break it, but in the end they had all failed. But now, it no longer hurt, and his frozen domain had been broken through in an instant. In less than a minute, all of his companions had been killed. His state of mind, which had always been victorious, was shaken at this moment. Die. In a battle, the thing that everyone feared the most was fear. As long as this feeling appeared in their hearts, they would lose without even fighting. With a swoosh, while speaking, Linley's figure disappeared once more. Bang! Just as everyone was expecting to see the Qianquan sect's holy son being killed, the sound of weapons clashing rang through the second floor. At this moment, Linley had already arrived beside Ping Yun, and the chaotic dragon spear in his hand was already in front of him. However, at this moment, a series of pitch-black shields instantly appeared and miraculously neutralized the force of the spear. What? When this happened, Lin Rei was shocked. He knew the level of his spear. Even though it wasn't at the sage state, it was at the peak of the godly state. He didn't expect there to be a weapon in the realm of the gods that could block his spear. No wonder. At this moment, the little dragon in the system was equally as shocked as Lin Rei. After all, he was the one who gave the Chaos Dragon Spear to Lin Rei. He knew more about the Chaos Dragon Spear than Lin Rei. However, after inspecting the black shield, his face, which was still in shock a second ago, turned into an expression of understanding in the next second. What? Can you explain clearly? Tell me, what is this shield? Why did he? Haha, this shield is a good item. Even though I don't know why it appeared in the realm of the gods, I have to say that this sage-grade weapon is much stronger than your spear. What? Sage-grade weapon? At this moment, when Linley heard Xiaolong's words, he cried out in surprise. His face was full of shock. Yes, that's right. It is indeed a sage-grade weapon. Looks like the Qiankuan sect has some connections with the holy world. You're in trouble now. At this moment, Xiaolong, who was in the system, had a serious expression on his face as he warned Lin Fan. Yes, I know. Don't worry, I will take care of it. Even though he guessed that the Qiankuan sect had some connections with the holy world, was he going to let the person in front of him go? The answer was, of course, impossible. He was determined to kill this Qiankuan sect disciple before him. However, he had no choice but to kill him. However, he was more curious about the person who had helped him. After exiting the conversation with the little dragon, he extended his consciousness towards the black shield. All he saw was an old man looking at him with a dark expression. Kid, you've got guts. Do you know that the Qiankuan sect's position in the realm of the gods is not to be trifled with? Aren't you afraid of offending the Qiankuan sect by doing this? At this moment the old man spoke. His voice was filled with the vicissitudes of life and killing intent. However, his words left everyone speechless. Even Ping Yun felt the same way. He shook his head helplessly and said, Elder Gu, you don't have to say any more. I've already said what you said. However, he said that the Qiankuan sect in the immortal world had been destroyed by him. Furthermore, he said that he would destroy the Qiankuan sect in the realm of the gods as well. What? Immortal world? At this moment, the old man called Elder Gu was shocked when he heard Ping Yun's words. He looked at Ping Yun strangely and said, You are the sect leader of the Xuanzong sect, Lin Rei? The person who destroyed the sect in the immortal world? When he heard Ping Yun's identity, he wasn't too surprised. After all, it had been so many years. If they still didn't know who he was, it only meant that there was no need for them to exist. That's right. So, let's not talk nonsense. Since you know who I am, you should know about the enmity between us. So, let's fight. Although he knew that Ping Yun had an upgraded weapon, he didn't believe that Ping Yun would be a match for him after he had the black shield. As he spoke, Lin Rei held the Chaos Dragon spear tightly in his hand. He released his cultivation and spiritual energy instantly flowed into the Chaos Dragon spear. Then, Martial God made his move. Although he had a premonition that the other party wasn't a match for him, he would lose if he underestimated the other party. Therefore, he had to use his mouth to overwhelm the other party right from the start. Since that's the case, let's fight. At this moment, Elder Gu, who had heard Lin Rei's words, naturally knew why the sect in the immortal world was destroyed. He also knew that this matter couldn't be resolved easily. Then, he released his cultivation and a shield appeared in his hand. He used his battle technique and disappeared from the spot. He charged towards Lin Rei. All right, show me the power of a sage-grade weapon. Martial God made his move and looked at the old man who was charging towards him. Suddenly, Lin Rei's body moved and charged towards the old man. In an instant, the powerful cultivation of both of them caused the entire restaurant to explode. Both of them were extremely fast and disappeared from everyone's sight. Pung! The sound of weapons clashing could be heard. The scene was the same as before. Both of them couldn't do anything to each other and just held on like this. However, Lin Rei frowned when he saw the two of them clashing. How did you find a way to enter the secret grounds at this time? Lin Rei was both happy and surprised at this news. He was happy that he had found a way to enter the secret grounds. However, looking at the old man and Ping Yun, Lin Rei was in a dilemma. Alright, stop hesitating. Entering the secret grounds is the most important thing now. As for Qianquan Sect, we can deal with them after we return from the secret ground. Chapter 643. Little Dragon naturally knew that he had found a way to enter the secret territory. He also knew that Lin Rei was hesitating. Just as Lin Rei was hesitating, he gave his opinion. Okay, I'll listen to you. Hearing Xiaolong's suggestion, Linli nodded. Although Linli very much wanted to kill these two people, when he thought of his goal in coming here, he immediately made up his mind. Whoosh! Only to see that Linli, who had already made his decision, didn't bother with Elder Go from the Qianquan Sect. He immediately retreated to the side. At this moment, the battle in the restaurant had alarmed everyone in the western city gate. Isn't that Ge Ming? What? That's the elder from the Qianquan Sect? At this moment, the restaurant had exploded due to the battle between Linli and Elder Go. It was precisely because of this that everyone on the street had noticed the two of them. Many of the people in the crowd were from large sections. Naturally, they had seen Ge Ming before. In fact, some of them were acquainted with him and could even be considered his friends. When they saw that it was Ge Ming who did this, traces of surprise appeared on their faces. This was because in their impression of Ge Ming had always been someone who was easy to get along with and would not lose his temper easily. To put it bluntly, he was a coward. But now they were all surprised. At this moment, Linli, who had escaped from the battle, sensed the channel he had deduced in his mind. Immediately, panic appeared on his face. That was because this channel wouldn't exist for a long time. Instead, it would change at any time according to the changes in the formation. Linli was panicking because he didn't have much time left. Lin Rei ignored Ge Ming and Ping Yun and walked to Chu Xiai and Yun Kai's side. He said, "Let's go, I have calculated the path to the secret territory." What? At this moment Chu Xiai, who had been watching the battle, was stunned when she heard Lin Rei's words. Yun Kai, who was beside her, exclaimed, "Haha, let's go. Once we enter, you two can do whatever you want. Now isn't the time to talk." Looking at their current expressions, Linli's face was filled with helplessness for a moment. Then, he said to them. In an instant, he released his cultivation and enveloped the two of them as he prepared to leave. "Young master, just when Lin Rei thought that he could leave easily," Hong Lian's voice rang out again. At that moment, Lin Rei leaned to the side and stopped in his tracks. "Young master, back then, Hong Lian looked at Lin Rei's back that she had been thinking about day and night. At that moment, she couldn't say the words that she had been thinking about for a long time. "Alright, that's enough. I've already made it clear back then. Since you've already made your choice, there's naturally no need for you to follow me. Moreover, aren't you doing quite well right now? With your current strength, your background must be quite impressive. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for you to break through to such a level of cultivation in such a short amount of time." Lin Rei could clearly see Hong Lian's current state and emotions. Although he did not turn around, the senses of his soul had never left her. Looking at Hong Lian, who was already in tears, he had thought that he would never see her again. No, that wasn't right. He had thought that it was impossible for them to meet again. His heart began to ache. His body had the urge to rush up to her, hug her, and comfort her. Lin Rei restrained himself as much as he could. He did not want to do something like that again. With Bing and Ing, that was enough. Moreover, he still could not let go of Jean Ling's death. Plop. At that moment, Hong Lian, who was behind him, suddenly knelt on the ground and begged, "Young master, it was my fault back then. I shouldn't have done such a thing back then. No matter what the reason was, since I did it, I have to accept the punishment. After so many years, the reason why I was able to reach my current level was because I wanted to personally come to your side and apologize. Since I've seen you now, Hong Lian has nothing else to say. I don't ask for your forgiveness, I only ask that young master can remember Hong Lian. That's enough. No one knew what Hong Lian was going to do, but the moment she said those words, Linley felt that something was amiss. Following that, his divine consciousness, which had been observing Hong Lian, suddenly saw a long sword appear in Hong Lian's hand, and he was charging towards his Dan palace. Not good. After all, as soon as it appeared, everyone present was stunned. Everyone looked at the scene with a strange expression on their faces. Even Gu Ming, who was fighting with Lin Rei, wanted to follow up with another attack when he saw that Lin Rei had retreated from the battle. But now, he stopped. He wanted to see what would happen next. After all, such a good show was not often seen in the divine world. Not only that, according to the battle just now, although he had the upper hand in the eyes of others, he knew that he was the one who was at a disadvantage. Not only that, although the attack just now did not cause him any serious injuries, it brought him quite a bit of shock. Therefore, he did not dare to act rashly. After all, he had the Sect's holy son beside him. He did not dare to guarantee that the other party would not launch a sneak attack when he was fighting with him. Bang! At this moment the scene was very dramatic. What was originally a good battle had now turned into a tragic drama. Regarding this, the spectators were relishing in it. At this moment, Lin Rei had brought Chu Xiai and Yun Kai to the front of Hong Lian. Lin Rei's hand had already grabbed the sword that was thrusting towards his Dan palace. Young master! Hong Lian, who had her eyes open all this time, naturally saw this scene. Then, the tears in her eyes flowed down like a waterfall, surging violently. All right, let's not talk about this first. Little Yun, follow me. At this moment, although Lin Rei's face was filled with worry, his heart was extremely anxious. It was not because of anything else. Just now, he suddenly felt and calculated that the passageway had started to slowly change outside. Regarding this, he could not care less. After all, it was not a big deal to have one more person. At the very most, they could just split up when they were inside. With this thought in mind, Lin Rei's cultivation instantly enveloped Hong Lian, who was kneeling on the ground. He did not care about the surrounding people and circulated the primal chaos scripture to the extreme. In an instant, he circulated the dragon subduing step and a huge azure dragon appeared. The dragon's body was covered with scales and looked extremely lifelike. Moreover, the dragon's eyes were very spirited, as if it was real. The moment the azure dragon appeared, Gu Ming, who was at the side, felt that something was wrong. However, he could not figure out what was wrong. At this moment, the dragon subduing step was circulated to the extreme. Lin Rei activated his fingernails and instantly, he disappeared in front of everyone's eyes like a sharp arrow released from a bow. After all, the moment it appeared, everyone present revealed astonished expressions. Everyone was stunned. What's going on? Where is he? At this moment, Gu Ming, who had been feeling that there was nothing wrong, was even more certain of his previous thoughts. Quick, look. Someone entered the door. Just when everyone's attention was on the place where Lin Rei disappeared, a sudden voice stunned everyone. What? Once this voice was heard, everyone turned to look at the door. At this moment, an azure dragon had arrived at the entrance of the door. How is this possible? At this moment, Gu Ming, who had also turned to look at the door, naturally saw that the azure dragon in front of the door was none other than Lin Rei, who had just activated the void. However, what shocked him was that the door was not open. How did he appear there? As an emperor god, he could naturally see the array on the door. Could it be? Suddenly, Gu Ming seemed to have thought of something and a trace of shock appeared on his face. However, after the shock, Gu Ming's expression became serious. What's wrong, elder? At this moment, Ping Yun, who had been standing at the side, heard Gu Ming's words and asked curiously. Sigh. Hearing Ping Yun's words, Gu Ming sighed. Gu Ming sighed and said, it seems that we have all underestimated that person. That person's attack just now was able to injure me slightly. Moreover, he is already in front of the door. According to my calculations, if he wants to enter the door in advance, he must be a formation master. After saying this, Ping Yun's face turned pale instantly. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the azure dragon in front of the door and muttered to himself. Could it be that person? Just as Ping Yun was speaking, suddenly, a loud shout interrupted him. Quick, look! That person has entered the door. That person has entered the door. Really? Really? At this moment, everyone was shocked and confused. As for Ping Yun, when he heard the shout, his face was filled with shock. Haha, it seems that our Qiankuan sect has offended a powerful person this time. He is so powerful, and he is also a formation master. It seems that our Qiankuan sect has gotten into big trouble. At this moment, when Guming heard that Lin Rei had entered the door, a look of realization appeared on his face as he muttered to himself. That's right. The two of them looked at each other and then looked at the faintly discernible door. At this moment it was still empty. Lin Rei and the others were nowhere to be seen. Go and investigate. You must find out who the person who entered the door is. I must know. Even if you have to use all your connections, you must find him. You must find out. Enigma Palace must have this person. At this moment, Lin Rei had entered the door. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, it was not a secret at all. However, everyone was very curious about Lin Rei. This was especially so for the large sects and first-rank sections. At this moment, they were all interested in recruiting him. Chapter 644. However, at this moment, not only did they want to recruit him, but they also had another dark side. That was, even if they couldn't become one of them, they definitely wouldn't let others have him. At this moment, among the crowd, the Liao siblings from the Falling Star Pavilion beamed the moment they saw Lin Rei. Their faces were filled with happy smiles, but when they heard the discussions around them, they didn't go forward to greet him. After all, at this moment, Linley had already revealed an ability that made everyone fear him. Even if they couldn't have it, they couldn't let others have it. This was what everyone thought. Even if it was the siblings, if they didn't know Linley very well, they probably would have thought the same. Sister, what should we do? At this moment, Liao Jun heard the discussions around him and turned to ask Liao Yuning with a worried expression. Tisk, there's no other way. Since he's already gone in, he naturally won't be caught by others. Besides, at this moment, looking at her brother's anxious expression, Liao Yuning said helplessly, Don't underestimate him. It's not like you didn't know when he was in the Death Canyon. At that time, he was able to fight with all the powerhouses with that strength and force them to retreat in the end. Now that he's out, how strong is he? So, don't worry, I believe he'll have a way. At this moment, if Lin Rei heard Liao Yuning's words, he would definitely be surprised because ever since he met her, they didn't seem to be friendly, let alone praise him like this. Okay, got it. When he heard his sister's words, Liao Jun's nervous expression relaxed for a moment. At this moment, the door that appeared in the air was still flickering and didn't look like it was going to appear completely. For a moment, a trace of dejection appeared on everyone's faces. After all, someone had already gone in, and looking at the situation of the door in the air, it probably wouldn't recover for a while. Therefore, the people who came here to pick up scraps by luck began to slowly disperse at this moment. Young master, where are we? At this moment, the surroundings were pitch black and nothing could be seen, but the surrounding spiritual energy was many times denser than outside. A giant door that reached the sky stood there, emitting waves of pressure from the giant door. In addition, it also revealed a very simple aura. It's probably in the secret realm. I'm not too sure about the specifics. After all, this is my first time here. At this moment, Lin Ray and his group, who were being discussed by the outside world, were already standing in front of the giant door. They really came in. At this moment, everyone except for Lin Ray stood to the side, looking at the giant door in front of them. After hearing what Lin Ray said, everyone except for Lin Ray was stunned. Yes, we've entered. However, I'm afraid that this Martial Saint's secret dimension is not as simple as it seems. Since it's called a Martial Saint's secret dimension, any place in this place could be dangerous at any time. Therefore, when we enter later, the two of you must not separate. At the very least, this way you can protect each other. Sensing the looks on the faces of the people behind him, Linley spoke with a solemn look on his face. At the same time, looking at Hong Lian, who was brought in by him, Lin Ray said helplessly, "All right, since you're here to enter the secret realm, now that I've brought you in, it's time for us to separate." As he spoke, Linley ignored her, leading the two of them towards the door. Red Lotus, upon hearing Linley's words, had a look of agony on her face. Tears began to flow from her eyes, and her body began to tremble violently. Although Lin Ray's heart ached when he saw her like this, he did not turn back. Just like that, he arrived at the giant door and extended his divine sense. At this moment, he no longer had any worries. After all, he had already passed through the God-engulfing array, so there was no need to be afraid. Young Master, she, at this moment, Cloud, who had followed Linley to the giant door, looked at Red Lotus behind her. For a moment, she felt a sense of pity in her heart. Based on the conversation between the two of them, she could roughly guess what had happened. "Don't ask, just do your own thing." Hearing the words behind him, Lin Ray said in a low voice, "Also, although I've brought you in this time, you have to know that I won't help you here. If you want to survive, you have to rely on yourself. Not everyone has to pay for their own things, so be careful when you go in. I don't want to bring you in alive only to leave with two corpses." As soon as these words were spoken, Yun Kai's face turned deathly pale, as did Chu Ci by her side. However, the two of them quickly regained their composure, because they felt that Linley was right. "Understood, young master. We'll be careful. Don't worry." The two of them replied and regained their composure. Looking at the two of them, especially the resolute look in their eyes, Linley couldn't help but chuckle. "Here, these are two high-grade divine artifacts. Although they're not very good, you can make do with them. When I have time, I'll make two supreme-grade divine artifacts for you." Hiss! At this moment, the entire space was extremely quiet. There was no sound in the surroundings except for the sound of Yun Kai and Chu Ci sucking in a breath of cold air. At this moment, Yun Kai and Chu Ci, who were standing behind him, stared at the two long swords in front of them. Their eyes were filled with shock as they stared at Linley. In their hearts, they had already labeled Linley as an all-rounder. This was because ever since they had met Linley, regardless of whether it was alchemy, the formation just now, or whether it was the creation of a top-grade divine artifact, as long as it was made public in the God realm, it would be in existence that all the top sects would fight over. "What, don't you have eyes?" While the two of them were in a daze and letting their imaginations run wild, Lin Ray impatiently whispered to them, No. Don't want it." Lin Ray's words caused the two of them to tremble. Then, with embarrassed expressions, they came back to their senses and took the two swords and began to feel them. Sigh. Linley used his divine sense to sense their state of mind. For a moment, Linley shook his head helplessly. And then, he paid them no more attention. As for Red Lotus behind him, Linley's divine sense never left her. Although he had thought about it and even tried, he didn't succeed in the end. This was because every time his consciousness left her, not long after, his consciousness would involuntarily return to her body and pay attention to her. The Martial Saint's secret realm, the fated ones will open it. Right at this moment, just as Linley's thoughts were running wild, his divine sense, which was crawling atop the giant door, suddenly sensed a few large characters on the door. As soon as his divine sense made contact with those characters, something strange happened. A flash of panic rushed out and lit up the entire pitch-black space. A few large words appeared above everyone's heads. Haha, indeed, the Martial Saint's secret realm. However, the fated ones will open it. At this moment, far away from the giant door, a young man was hiding within it. When he saw the large golden words in the air, a smile appeared on his face. It was as though, just like Linley, he had already known the name of this pocket dimension beforehand. Haha, the fated ones will open it. I am the fated ones. So open it for me. At this moment, Lin Ray, who was standing below the giant door, looked at the words in the sky. Then, his body emitted a domineering aura. He circulated his spiritual energy and slammed his palm on the giant door. A loud bang resounded throughout the entire space. In an instant, everyone's gaze shifted to the giant door. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. Time passed, minute by minute, second by second, in the silent space. After the loud bang, there was no sound or any strange phenomenon for half an hour. During this period of time, Linley, who had been waiting, thought that he wouldn't be able to open it. But who would have thought that in the next moment things would change? Gotcha! A sudden sound rang out. Instantly, a smile appeared on Lin Ray's face. Haha, indeed, it's opened. TSK, the fated ones? Ha! A smile appeared on Linley's face when he heard the voice coming from the giant door. He did not continue to push the door open. Instead, he suddenly turned around and faced the direction he had entered from. He spoke in a low voice. You've been following me all the way. It's time to come out. Lin Ray's sudden words stunned everyone. Their faces were filled with confusion. Someone followed us? You don't know? However, since young master has said so, it must not be groundless. At this moment, Yun Kai and Chu Ci were confused when they heard Lin Ray's words. They looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. Just as everyone was confused, a young man appeared, proving Lin Ray's words. It's him? At this moment, because of the words in the sky, the entire space lit up. Therefore, the appearance of the person who appeared could be seen at a glance. At this moment, when Chu Ci and Yun Kai saw the appearance of the person who appeared, they cried out in shock. Hey, you're finally willing to come out? At this moment, the moment his divine consciousness sensed the young man, he recognized that this person was the other Emperor God in the restaurant, other than the Emperor God from the Tool Sect. Linley's divine consciousness had been paying attention to this person. In fact, Lin Ray had known about the young man's whereabouts long ago. The moment he used the dragon subduing step, the young man used an extremely profound movement technique and followed Lin Ray into the secret realm. Lin Ray knew all of this, but he didn't stop him because he wanted to see what the young man's motive was. Furthermore, to be able to enter the Divine Emperor realm at such a young age, one could imagine how powerful the force behind him was. You knew I was following you long ago? The young man strolled over slowly and looked at Linley with a hesitant expression. His eyes were filled with doubt. That's right, I noticed you long ago. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.